Good evening, everyone. It's Wednesday, October 19th, 2022. It's 6 p.m. This is a regular meeting of the Pacific Grove City Council. Welcome. And may we have a roll call, please?
Thank you, Mayor. Robinson?
Here.
Smith?
Here.
Baduri? McAdams?
Here.
Coletti?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio?
Here.
And Mayor Peak.
Here.
All are
All
present.
present.
All present,
And,
thank you.
Councilmember Pedori, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One
one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda, please?
Motion to approve the agenda.
A second.
And a vote, please.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio?
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams?
Aye.
Councilmembers Tomlinson?
Aye.
Smith?
Aye.
Baduri? Coletti?
Aye.
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve the agenda.
Moving on to council and staff announcements. We'll start with Mr. Pyrick.
Yes, I have an announcement to make. We recently completed a closed session regarding the initiation of litigation. The council voted to authorize the initiation of litigation in an action, and the defendants and the other particulars shall, once formally commenced, be disclosed to any person upon inquiry. The vote on the motion to initiate the litigation, voting yes, were Mayor Peak, Council members Jenny McAdams, Luke Coletti, Chaps Padura, and Nick Smith. Voting no were Amy Tomlinson and Mayor Pro Tem Joe Emilio. And that's the end of my announcement.
Mr. Harvey.
We have no announcements, Mayor.
Council announcements. Councilmember Pedori.
Yes, I just wanted to announce that in connection with the item number 9B Measure X funding agreement, next month in November 9th and 10th, the city will be organizing a workshop in connection with Smart Growth America, an institute that I've been part of. And that is to essentially understand what can we do to improve the five-way intersection in town. So the meeting invites will follow. This is a public forum, and I invite and encourage everybody to participate. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. This morning, Gathering for Women held a community breakfast at the Asilomar on the need of affordable housing and featured Kate Daniels as the guest speaker. I wanted to extend gratitude to Gathering for Women for their support of 500 plus Monterey Peninsula homeless women in our community and for hosting their event in Pacific Grove. Also, we've had several emails from the residents and businesses neighboring the construction site at 520 Lighthouse Avenue. I wanted to acknowledge the residents and businesses surrounding the development and thank them for their patience. I would encourage city staff to closely monitor any large construction sites to assist with code compliance. And if there are noise issues or other issues outside of regular business hours, can staff advise what the residents can do? Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. Sandra, did you have those couple of slides? Oh, yeah. Last Sunday I attended the Chinese Cultural Center and at the Custom House Plaza and spoke on the part of the city of Pacific Grove. And you'll see the Richard Zhang, who was in charge of it, is in the red outfit, and Jimmy Pinez's office is on the right of me, and the woman on the left is from the Middlebury Institute. Is there another slide? And this is just an example of some of the outfits that were at the Chinese Cultural Center. And that's it. Thank you.
And I have one announcement. Recently, Governor Newsom announced that the California state of emergency will end February 28th, 2023. And so my expectation is ending of the state of emergencies will cascade down through counties and cities in the state in the near future. And move on to general public comment. Please, welcome, come on up. We'll take in-person audience first and then virtual audience. Welcome.
My name is Steve Hawk, and this is a reference to the Noah property, a short statement I want to make. Neither the federal government, private owners, or anyone else has the right to disturb in any way the upper indigenous peoples' acres at 1352 Lighthouse Avenue, no more than they would have the right to disturb the earth of El Camarlo Cemetery on the other side of Asilomar Boulevard. Archaeological studies by the city in the late 1970s indicate those acres are of major significance. Indigenous people skeletons, perhaps victims of execution, were found on the nearby golf course acres. The upper acres at 1352 Lighthouse belong to Indigenous people and must be returned to them. It's a chance to do the right thing after centuries of abuse. Nor should the community be deprived of this rich historic resource of its history. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Welcome, please.
Copies for everybody. Good evening, council members and staff. We are the Haynes family here tonight to follow up on our previous requests regarding the lien filed against our property and to make sure an email we sent to the council on Monday, October 17th is entered into public comment. We have not received a response as of yet. Regarding the lien, we were not properly noticed or allowed an opportunity to dispute the charges assessed as a result of a judgment and a very painful experience. We asked for proof through a PRA submitted on September 28th, and I've attached it. Also includes the city clerk's response. We submitted the city's findings at the last meeting and would like to know if the council feels they are adequate for our PRA. And do you believe the city has done a thorough and complete investigation as the city clerk has described? At the 10-5 City Council meeting, we presented a letter inquiring about the findings and the documentation we are requesting. To date, we have not received any of the documentation we have requested. The only communication we have received came from City Manager Ben Harvey, who we believe has a conflict of interest in our matter. We do not recall receiving a final invoice, resolution, or lien from the City of Pacific Grove. This lien is forcing us to pay fees assessed as a result of a judgment. We are in dispute with the fees and fee schedule that was assessed. We were not given an opportunity to dispute these fees in front of the City Council before the resolution was signed and a lien filed due to lack of noticing, and do not remember any invoices being mailed to our property. Being forced to pay over $14,000 in fees through a lien without being given due process is ludicrous. Per your Muni Code, notification is required to provide us with due process. We were not given due process, and we are requesting the lien be immediately removed before our sale closes 10/25. We would then like an opportunity to discuss the fees in front of City Council, an opportunity we should have been given back before the lien was filed. What is a reasonable time frame to come up with your findings to our requests? We feel this is a very straightforward request and expect the lien to be removed immediately prior to our sale close 10/25 to allow us due process and time to discuss the matter. We have reached out multiple times to your city attorney as well as the mayor and council members with no response. It's our understanding that the council believes we are being communicated with. We are not. We need help on a very important matter in our lives. We appreciate anything the council can do to help us with this matter. We feel the transparency and communication efforts of the city could improve when it comes to our family. We had similar challenges in 2017 with submitting questions at council meetings and getting no response. We want to make sure that does not happen to us again. We appreciate your time and look forward to a prompt response. We have attached our letter previously submitted, as well as a letter from Mr. Harvey that we believe reflects why we have concern that there is bias and a conflict of interest. Thank you for your time, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. We'll have comments on this at the end of public comment.
Okay, thank you.
So please stick around. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here to everyone present as well as people watching on Zoom. I have three quick little comment topics. First of all, I was really surprised last night to see a current seated member of the city council who's running to be reelected on KSBW TV, what seemed to me to be promoting a measure that's going to be on the ballot, that being Measure M, the marijuana store issue. And I don't know what the proper protocol for that is, but I was really surprised. It was almost as if the city is endorsing Measure M. That's kind of the feeling I got when a city councilman goes and presents a interview of that nature. So I just want to let you know, I am against Measure M. I don't think we need to have a pot shop anywhere in the city of Pacific Grove. It's not that far to drive. People go over to In-N-Out Burger, they go to Costco, they go to Home Depot, In-N-Out Burger especially. So while you're out there, you can pick up your weed right there on the corner of Canyon Del Rey. I'm sure everybody knows where that is. Okay, the main topic, I don't want to run out of time, was something I find very appalling. Last week, I spoke with a young woman about the housing meeting that was coming up that week. This was 2 weeks ago now at the last city council meeting. And I was told it was Zoom only, could not attend in public. I find that abhorrent. Then this last Monday, several of the community goes to the DEI task force meeting and we're not allowed in. We're told go home and go on Zoom. Now what's going on here? COVID is over. You know, I think every meeting has to be both public and Zoom, not one or the other, especially at the last minute when you show up for a meeting and you're told go home, go on Zoom, or you can't come, go home and Zoom. And that's not the end of the story. Wednesday last week, I go to the Beautification and Natural Resources meeting with about 15 other local residents. Only 2 commissioners show up in person. The rest on Zoom, I'll never know. Neither will you because Zoom didn't work that night. After 35 minutes of city staff fumbling and bumbling with the Zoom equipment, they were unable to have it operable. So what happened? The meeting was canceled at 6:35 and postponed till in November, not the next week, but a month away. And again, this is ridiculous. What's going on? The meetings, I'm glad to see you all here, by the way. I know usually we don't get a full house. We get 1 or 2, or we get out 4 or 5 usually. So I'd like you to look into this and come up with some kind of a plan, enforcement, that the staff who comes to run the Zoom knows what they're doing. So there won't be all this fumbling and bumbling. And when the public comes, they're not denied entry to a meeting. Or if they're home on Zoom, they can't participate at all. And then we have commissioners who don't show up for the meetings because they're just going to stay home and go on Zoom. I don't think that's appropriate. Thank you very much.
Mayor. Mr. Harvey, any other public comment? Please come forward. Welcome.
I don't actually live in your community. I'm from Salinas, but this has to do with a business within Pacific Grove city limits. I brought this to everyone's attention back in February that this business may be operating without the proper permits. And I basically was told, well, they pay their taxes, so we don't care if they update their business license. But it turns out none of their information has been updated. One of the permits is over 20 years old. And that's the seller's permit, which is required by the state of California in order to operate a business. I brought this to the attention again just this past couple of days, and I got the same responses. Well, but they pay their taxes. Well, how are you knowing what you're charging them? Because you don't have an updated address. So this person is being allowed to run this business without a valid business license and without a valid seller's permit. And I just want to know why. And I've actually contacted everyone here, including the mayor. I reached out to the city attorneys. I reached out to the old city attorney. And No one has anything to say. And this woman is now victimizing me because she's been allowed to get away with this. Had they listened to me in February, I wouldn't have to deal with her now. So I'm open to any questions. If anybody wants to ask me who this is.
Please send council another email. I don't recall
Okay,
this topic,
I certainly
quite
will.
frankly. Okay.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else? Welcome.
I didn't really come up here, come to speak, but there's some bad things going on in the city. Why would you not return a call or give a note to people who write to you? What the heck is that all about? We've got serious problems in the city. You're bringing drugs you want to bring drugs into it? The kids have just come over COVID. The suicide rate is up throughout the country. We want to give them more drugs, make it easier to give them drugs. We're going to teach them. We can't even keep the clock straight. And we're going to teach the kids how to deal with drugs. Let's knock it off. Let's start treating us with respect and dignity. When we write to you, when we call you, get back to us. Okay? This poor couple over here, they're suffering. Don't you see that? Money. They want some responsibility from you people. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Not seeing anyone else, anyone in the virtual audience?
We do have some callers calling in. Catherine Jimenez.
Yes,
Welcome.
You have your hand raised. Do you have public comment?
not yet. I'm waiting for the issue to come up, and then I will have my comment.
Thank you.
Okay.
Inga Lawrenson Domer.
Welcome.
Thank you. On agenda number 8D, which I don't want to pull from consent, but I do want it corrected because as I'm sure all of you know, under 2E, it says that the draft plan brought to the BNRC on October 12th, 2022. And then it'll go to city council. Well, obviously the BNRC meeting did not happen on October 12th, as you've heard the reasons, and technical difficulties. And so I would really much like for accuracy and the history of our city, I would like that corrected in the council goals and tactics. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mike Gibbs.
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate it here. The previous gentleman was very eloquent in his passion for the city council to respond, the city manager to respond, the city attorney to respond. I myself have asked directly the city attorney and city manager questions, and they didn't even bother to say, buzz off. We're not going to answer your question. I hate to put it that way, but you know, recognition is better than just ignoring somebody. So I'm here to talk about Councilman Podori, who gave a very public statement on KSPW yesterday, I believe it was, about cannabis, and he is for cannabis. And I know Chaps, he seems like a very nice guy, but I think he is uninformed, or I even say misinformed. He did not mention that the American Medical Association is strongly against the legalization of recreational marijuana. They have written a policy, it's online, you can read it. I'm wondering why he doesn't know this. State medical associations in at least 7 states, we're talking tens of thousands of doctors, have come out very strongly against local authorities like Pacific Grove legalizing recreational marijuana. We already have the medicinal here. We don't need the recreational. They are very strongly against the legalization of this and the damage it will do to our young people, right? The promises of money, not going to happen. $300,000 will be eaten up by training our local police force, code enforcement, mental health, and other issues, right? I'm wondering if the councilman knows that ER visits in the state of California are up 53% since we legalized this drug. It's illegal at the federal level. I want to know if the council understands that the autopsies of kids who have died by taking drugs, the number one drug that they find, it's not fentanyl, it's not heroin, it's not MDMA. The number one drug found at the autopsies of young people is THC, the primary psychoactive element in cannabis. Anybody listening to this should vote for that one reason alone, should vote no. I'm wondering if the councilman understands this information, right? So anybody paying attention to this would be a no on cannabis for Pacific Grove. We don't want it, we don't need it, and it puts our kids at risk. It will create a larger market, and people that didn't use it before will sign on. And it's not about the money, it's about our kids' lives. And if you don't get that straight, then we should have more people running for city council. Thank you very much. Mayor, you've been very responsive. I appreciate your response to all of our emails. Thank you.
Thank you.
Peggy Gibbs. Peggy Gibbs.
Welcome.
I'm having to look at a computer and my phone in order to participate. I just wanted to read something that appeared in the LA Times. Other state officials have responded to the Times, and I appreciate that.
Ms.
But
Gibbs,
there is
Ms. Gibbs,
particularly
Peggy.
very disturbing newspaper findings that are showing that the legalization of cannabis has triggered a surge in the outlaw cannabis grows. And those grows have then engulfed entire communities, resulting in environmental damage, increased violence, exploitation of workers, including some who have died from carbon monoxide poisoning from generators while trying to keep warm. This was written in the LA Times this last week. And many communities that in the past created recreational cannabis are now trying to pull it back because they're seeing the problems that have come and they wish they had never voted for it. I am urging the council to vote no on cannabis and to realize that it is extremely available for the medical portion. Just go to Safeway and find out that you can buy CBD there. I thank you for your time, and I do appreciate that Mayor Peak has been responsive to emails, and I would urge all of you to respond to all of the questions that you're getting from residents, especially at this time when everyone is seeking your information and understanding of what it is that we are trying to carefully vote on November 8th. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Christy Thomas.
Welcome.
Hello, thank you all so much for your service and for contending with all of us. And I have always gotten emails back and I'm grateful, but here you go. The reason I'm bringing up pickleball to you now and not the rec meeting is because for since the end of August, September, we've been going around in circles because it was the city council about 3 years ago. It's been 3 years since that probationary period that you allowed Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday play there. And you may or may not know, since that time, this sport has exploded. It's, you know, anyway, I have Katie at the recreation department there, Dango, they all are very, very aware of how many people are playing, how many people are waiting to play. But now we're to the point that it's almost a discriminatory thing for for pickleball because tennis is allowed there 7 days a week. And I defy anyone to go by and catch a picture of ever more than 3 tennis courts going at the same time. And so I'm pretty frustrated because Dan Go has been so great and saying they can't do anything. They're very aware of the need for more courts and more days because the council made the rule. Katie, she sees everybody out there waiting. We have sometimes 24 people waiting to play. And then to add insult to, well, not insult, but anyway, you've allowed the PG adult school to teach it. Well, Marta from PG Adult even offered to teach it on Monday or Wednesday, not to take the rec play from people. But oh no, that rule, Tuesday, Thursday. So now everybody has to leave, leave, and that cuts down. But that's adding even more people to play. So the point is that then this has to go to rec, but the rec department has been bombarded with all of this, and they didn't even put it on an agenda for the council because they canceled their meeting last time. And why should it have to be on their agenda when they're getting bombarded with letters? I know you guys are too. And anybody in recreation should know the needs and wants of the community and how this sport is like at a 39.3% increase over last year. I mean, 48 million people, not in PG, 48 million people are playing. So, we'd like to get some resolve on this and, have one more court painted, which would be 2 pickleball courts. And, it would also make less crowds if people could go on other days, on Monday and Wednesday and Friday. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carmelita Garcia.
Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you all very much for your service. I'm not sure you are all aware of the tragedy that occurred, well, maybe a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, of the mature deer, doe, being hit by a car on Central Avenue. It was a very, very sad event. The doe managed to get down to Ocean View right at Jacobson Park, Andy Jacobson Park, where she died. And there was a buck there with her. There's a short video on Nextdoor PG that shows the buck leaning into her. And I don't know, to me, it was kind of like he was nudging her face. And then he turned around and walked away. Not only is that death very sad, but this particular pair had 2 fawns as well. So the point I want to make again is that this is rutting season. The buck are running crazy. The does are running from the bucks, and people have just got to slow down. I want to give a really big shout out to Chief Madelone, who really jumped on a request from me as well as Jocelyn to get the word out. And they did via Facebook, the department's Facebook. The chief was sure to cite it being a misdemeanor to hit a deer and take off from the scene. And then the SPCA joined in and reiterated the fact that it is rutting season and things to do and not do. But again, this is a very, very sad tragedy that occurred in our community, and it just does not have to happen. And so I would ask the city manager to please consider putting a blurb in the next city report, perhaps putting a blurb on the city's website so that we can be mindful and continue to remind folks to slow down. So thank you again, and thank you, Chief, very much.
Thank you.
Stephen Lilly.
Welcome.
You hear me now?
Yes. Welcome.
That's the usual words. Again, Mr. Mayor and council members, thank you for your service. I'll be brief. Earlier this week, I sent you a letter as chair of the Planning Commission about the activities of the Parklet Program Subcommittee. And it listed the various items that we've been involved with. We've met 13 times already, 14 times on Friday. We will have a report available for consideration by the Planning Commission at its next meeting. So that means that we have a timeline of around November 2nd to get something on the docket through the staff. So I just wanted to briefly mention this to you and wish you well this evening.
Thank you.
No further hands, Mayor.
All right, a closed public comment. And Mr. Pyrick, do you have some comments for the Haynes lien?
Yes, I do. The first thing I want to mention is that the city clerk did respond to the public records request that the Haynes submitted. I have had an opportunity to review your code and also to do some research with regards to the city records. And I will say to you that your code does require that a notice of lien be served upon the property owner. And I can also confirm that city staff has done a thorough search of the city records and has been unable to locate a copy of the notice of lien as being served upon the Haynes. I also checked with the former city attorney, David Laredo, and he advised me that he was unable to locate in his files a copy of the notice being served upon the Haynes. So in light, I don't know for a fact that the notice was never provided to them, but I can say that we didn't find it in the city records, and the city attorney, former city attorney, did not find it in his records. So my recommendation to you is that I return to you on November 2nd as your next regularly scheduled meeting with a resolution to rescind the prior resolution that authorized the notice of lien, and also with a release of that lien that would be recorded subsequent to action on that resolution.
Councilmember, this is unusual circumstances. We don't usually discuss public comment, but under this circumstance, Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. And what about the closing date of the real estate transaction of 10/25? Is there anything that the city can do to assist in meeting that?
Well, I think that's
timeline?
up to the parties to the escrow. I'm not going to give legal advice on how they address that.
Sure.
I've provided the information in terms of what my recommendation is that the city do. And I assume that they can take whatever action they feel is appropriate in light of that.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. That ends public comment. We're now moving on to the consent agenda. Anyone on council wishing to pull a consent agenda item? Anyone from the public wishing to pull a consent agenda item? How about the virtual audience?
Nobody online.
Mr.
Mayor.
Sador, are you pulling a consent agenda item? I don't think so.
On item 10C, the Planning Commission meeting minutes for July 14th and August 11th. The word draft will be removed from each set of minutes, and corrected versions have been forwarded to the city clerk. And that's all.
All
The
right.
item doesn't need to be pulled.
Okay, thank you. Do we have anyone from our virtual audience wishing to pull a consent agenda item?
No, sir, no hands are raised.
All right, motion to approve.
So moved, Your Honor.
Second.
All right, well, it was a tie, but let's give this one to Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you.
All right, and a vote, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Baduri, Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio,
Aye.
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0 to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. Briefly, what we've just done, council has approved its minutes from October 5th. We've approved a resolution updating our records policy 19. We have directed staff to prepare a contract amendment with HDL for various transaction and tax records. We have received a report check register from September. Core revenue also for September. Councilmember Pedori reported that he went to the League of California Cities Conference. And we've received a updated council goals and tactics from the city manager. We've also authorized execution of Measure X funding for what would likely be a roundabout at Sunset Cedar and Congress. We have authorized waiving fees for the California Coastal Conservancy to meet here in council chambers. We've received minutes from the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Task Force for September, the Library Board from July, and the Planning Commission from July and August. And now that brings us to item 11A, the PERC water extension. Mr. Go, welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor. Members of the City Council, I do have a brief presentation tonight, which our Deputy City Clerk has now loaded. Very good. So tonight we are here to discuss briefly, the presentation will be brief, extension for PERC water for the operations of the local water project. Next slide, please. So a little bit of background. The city has an agreement with PERC Water for operations of the local water project. This was a 5-year agreement which commenced in January of 2018. The original agreement is set to expire at the end of this month, October 31st. Next slide. The city was approached by PERC Water in March of 2020. Per the agreement, PERC and the city are to meet and discuss in good faith an extension. The city requested review of current operations and costs. That's something that I've heard over the last 6 months from the city council. So I expressed that desire to PERC Water. We went back and forth numerous times. Their initial proposal showed over a 17.4% increase, which was based on a flat fee rate, stating increases in processed chemicals, labor, fuel, monitoring, and sampling, all inflation items that we're all experiencing today. We rejected that. I rejected that and requested a fixed fee and a flow-based variable rate similar to the current agreement. This is what's before you tonight. It equates to approximately a 9.7% increase. I'm requesting of City Council tonight to give this 1 year extension so we can continue negotiations for 6 months. At the end of 6 months, which I believe is May of 2023, I'll bring back what negotiations have transpired and let the city council weigh in on those. If the city council doesn't agree, then we have 6 months to issue an RFP for operations, receive back the request for qualifications and the request for proposals, do negotiations, interviews, and so on and so forth, and then still have continuous operations of the local water project. Next slide. So here's just a quick pricing breakdown. It's also in your staff report. So the current fee is about 23,000 current, where the proposed is 26. So for an annual difference of 28, and then you throw in the variable, which is another 1,500. So the annual cost for just this 1 year is $30,000. It's approximately $19,000 in this current fiscal year, another 11 in the following fiscal year. We'll be able to make that budget adjustment at mid-year, no problem. And then we'll add the existing or the additional $11,000 into next year's budget if it's approved. Next slide. So the recommendation, as I already alluded to, is to authorize an extension with PERC. I'll work with the city attorney's office to come up with a letter of an extension with the same exact terms that are noted in the current agreement for 1 year, which would be November 1st through October 31st, 2023, for a cost of $26,188 and a flow-based variable unit price of $247 per acre foot, and authorize staff to continue negotiations for another 6 months and bring back those negotiations by May of 2023. And one thing I would like to just clarify is that monthly fixed or monthly flow-based unit. So what that is it's $247 per acre foot that they produce. So if Perk Water produces the water that we can use, they charge that. So the more they produce, the more we're able to sell and recoup our costs. This is the way the current agreement is set up. That concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Do we have any public comment? We'll start with the in-person audience. Seeing no one getting up, our virtual audience.
No hands are raised, Mr. Mayor.
All right, bring it back to council. Council discussion on the item. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor. So Mr. Go, from March until now, you have been in negotiations. It started as a pretty high request on their side. You've gotten it down to, I believe you said 9% of a hike. That's what you're asking us to grant for the next 6 months. I'm a little confused on whether we're locking in the current rate or this 9% increase for the next 6 months. That's one question.
Councilmember Tomlinson, through the mayor, it would be a 9% increase for the entire year. So they are due an increase.
Sorry, a year. I didn't mean 6 months, a
Yeah,
year.
they are due an increase per the Levitt CPI, construction CPI based out of Los Angeles come November 1st per the current agreement. So, and last time I checked prior to me having this on the agenda for October 2nd, that was at 7.9%. So they would be entitled to that fee anyways. And then they added an extra 2% for their inflation cost. So yeah, this would lock in this extra $30,000 for the additional year for them to continue the operations.
Okay, and then you would spend the next 6 months continuing to negotiate, assuming a contract that would have similar terms or maybe some better terms, certainly a longer term. And so I guess my question is, what I guess you don't want to say exactly what you're looking for in that negotiation, but like, why don't we have that now? And what's going to change in the next 6 months as you go down that negotiation path?
I've discussed it with Councilmember Thompson through the mayor. I've discussed it with Perk Water and the president, and they would like to open their books with us and really show the city, which we haven't done yet. We've been going back and forth, but show the city where their expenses are. I really doubt that we would experience anything less than this 9%. I'm hoping that maybe we can get something that's similar to what I'm presenting to you tonight. But this would just be like an extension letter where I think we'll really dive into the whole agreement and really start spelling it out and maybe see how they can assist us with maybe some future capital expenditures, like maybe if they want to help us with the Purple Pipe project or something similar to that aspect moving forward. We really focused our energy in these negotiations on, I really wanted to try to keep it at the current agreement and almost just extend it and move forward, but they are experiencing these inflations costs that have been constantly moving over the last 6 months. So we would be discussing something and inflation would increase significantly and just their cost for shipping and trucking and so on and so forth was increasing. So hence why the 17.4, and I said, my council is never going to agree to this. And that's where we came back and forth. And this is where we landed at this 9% increase, which is really only 2% more than what they are already almost entitled to just because of what the current agreement specifies. I think it will give us an opportunity to really dive in the next 6 months, which is the off irrigation season. You know, we were trying to do this when everybody was running wild, trying to run this plant and push out as much water as we could. And this will give us an opportunity when everything's just kind of slowed down a little bit at the local water project to sit down and really try to come up with a sound agreement that's suitable for both parties for another 5 years or so. That's what we're looking for. They do an excellent job operating the plant.
That is my understanding. I think my concern is, getting to the 17% will ultimately happen if you do 9% for a year and then what looks like only 7% a year later. And we've kind of forgotten about the 9%, and there's other entitlement percentages and these types of things. So I'm not a huge fan of this approach, the way I'm understanding it. My other question is, these increases in costs, let's say they do go to this 17 to 20% range just due to the way that where we land. Is this being considered in our other negotiations that are going on with other leases and the overall operating budget of the golf course?
I've been discussing it with Mr. Harvey and Director Hannah, so we're cognizant of it. And that's another reason why we would like to extend this for the year, so we can make sure that what we're doing with the other lease negotiations can meld into this one also. And that's a very good point you have about the annual increases, and maybe that's something that we can negotiate in, that maybe it's not based on that Los Angeles construction CPI, that maybe it's a fixed increase, or that increase maybe is negotiated annually. That's a very good suggestion.
Do we have the option at this time to extend with current terms while this negotiation continues?
That's something I could bring back to them, but they would experience that 7.9% increase regardless if we were to do that. And I would fear that it would jeopardize the opportunity for us to continue the operations with them at the plant.
Okay. All right. Thanks for all the answers.
Of course.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. So are we talking about a 1-year extension to the contract or a 6-month extension to the contract?
We're talking, Councilmember Coletti, through the mayor, I'm asking for a 1-year extension through the contract, 6 months for me to continue negotiations, and within that 6 months, bring back negotiations to the city council for considerations. If the city council doesn't agree on that, I still have another 6 months of PERC Water operating the plant, because we need to keep the plant operating, for us then to release a request for proposals or request for qualifications, finalize up those requests within the second 6 months, and bring them back for council approval with a new operator, or basically a new operator.
Okay.
So 1 year, 6 months, negotiate, 6 months RFQ if the negotiations aren't fulfilled, or that would be 6 months after the negotiations to finalize up an agreement.
So this potentially locks us in at a 9.7% increase for up to a year.
That's correct.
Are you expecting to do an RFQ no matter what? Or what's your threshold? Where do you say we're going to do an RFQ, and what's the threshold for when the negotiations fail?
I would say that I would bring options forward to city council, and obviously that would be your decision to make. So I could bring forth options that PERC Water has presented to the staff, to city council, for you ultimately to decide.
Okay.
It would be a policy decision for you to decide. I would do that within this first 6 months.
Okay, so you're going to be bringing back the status of the negotiation within 6 months.
That's correct.
And then we'll decide at that point whether we're going to accept it or go on to an RFQ.
Affirmative.
Okay. So you mentioned, I think, for the 200, this flow rate based fee, that's for influence. So that's just the amount of wastewater we're taking in, right? So $247 per acre foot of wastewater taken in, is that right? Or are you talking about actual produced water?
I would have to look exactly at what the language says, but it is, I believe it's the produced water.
Well, it says influence, so okay, well, you can get back to me on that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm a little bit worried about contract creep as well, but I don't know what we're going to do at this point. We've got a facility that we got to keep operating. And all I would say is come back to us as soon as possible. If you can do it sooner than 6 months, I think that would be appreciated. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the efforts and the breakdown of the timeline. I know that this council over several conversations, we have this constant financial burden of the local water project. And I'm happy to support this additional time. And I'm really concerned that if we get to having, issuing RFQ, RFP, that there are very minimal responses, right? I mean, isn't this like a very niche market? And so then what? I just wanted to share that concern. I appreciate, you bringing this forward. And I do like the idea of, I'm happy to extend it for the year with that expectation of, staff coming back in 6 months, or like Councilmember Coletti said, as soon as possible. Because I do think that it's going to be not a lot of responses to the request for a proposal. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. I understand this has to be done. It's then come back to us in 6 months. But my question is that why do they use the costs report local to Los Angeles? Why don't they do the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area cost of living? I'm just curious if you know that, Mr. Go.
Their company is based at, Councilmember Mueller through the mayor, their company is based out of Santa Paula, I believe. So they are a Southern California based company. I believe that's why it was noted that way in the original agreement.
Okay, that's good. I'm in support of it.
May we have a vote, please? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'll-
Motion. How about a
I'll-
motion
I'll move-
first?
I'll move the recommendations, Your Honor.
Thank you.
Second.
Now a vote, please.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio,
Aye.
Mayor Pink,
Aye.
Councilmembers Coletti,
Aye.
Adams,
Aye.
Baduri,
Aye.
Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. That brings us to item 11B, concept review, new fire engine. Chief Pansholzer, welcome.
Presentation queued up. So good evening, Mayor and members of the council and members of the public. Galdens Panholzer, your fire chief, and I'm here to talk about the replacement of a fire engine for the city of Pacific Grove. Next slide. The action before you tonight is to provide direction to staff on whether to purchase an electric or diesel powered fire engine and to authorize the purchase. As you may be aware, under the contract for services wherein the city of Monterey provides fire services in the city of Pacific Grove, that contract calls for that the fire station and all the fire apparatus are still owned and maintained by the city of Pacific Grove, and they are leased back to us at no cost in the contract for purposes of providing the services. So the responsibility for replacing the fire apparatus falls on the city of Pacific Grove. Currently, the fleet includes, back one, currently the fleet includes 2 engines, one in frontline service and one in reserve service. The frontline engine is a 2006 Pierce, and the reserve engine is a 1997 Pierce engine. Next slide. Apparatus replacement is driven by several factors, including age, mileage, and repair costs. 15 years is kind of an industry normal for frontline service for a fire engine, but it can vary based on the usage and on maintenance costs. As you are aware, because over the last 2 meetings, you had to authorize the repairs of the frontline engine to the tune of $75,000. Clearly, we're at a stage now where we're looking at some pretty major failures in the equipment and should consider purchasing a new engine. And one of the other big considerations is that because of supply chain issues and labor market issues and all the other things that the world is experiencing these days, we used to be able to get a fire engine within a year or less when we ordered it, and we're now being told 24 months is the minimum, and it could even go up to 30 months before we see delivery. So whatever action we take today is not going to actually be implemented for several years. One of the, next slide, please. One of the council priorities is to look at electrifying the fleet and going green. And so we did quite a bit of research on electric fire apparatus. It's very, very new technology, very, very new in the industry. There's 3 manufacturers that produce electric engines, 2 of them here in the United States, and one is an Austrian manufacturer, although they do have a plant here in the United States, and they sell quite a bit of apparatus here in the United States, although the electric ones are still manufactured over in Austria. Of these 3 apparatus manufacturers, they have very, very few engines in service anywhere. The Austrian manufacturer has 1 in service in Berlin, and the Los Angeles City Fire Department just placed 1 of those in service. Pierce, which is one of the American manufacturers, has 1 in service in Wisconsin, and I think they just placed 1 in service in Portland, Oregon. So we're talking about a fleet of fewer than 5 or 6 engines in service worldwide in the electric apparatus market. The other challenge with that, and so there's a lot of unknowns in that world. The battery replacement is one of the questions that came up, and how much that would cost and how soon. And generally they're saying, well, we think maybe 10 years, 15 years for the battery, and they're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace them. So that could be a future unknown cost in an electric engine. The other part of it is that with an electric vehicle, you have to have a charging station, but the engine has a much larger battery than the typical electric vehicle that you might buy for your own personal use. And so the charging station has to be much, much higher capacity in order to be able to keep up with the demand. And the cost estimates are in the range of about $150,000 to install the charging system in the station. And there's still an unanswered question, and that is even if the PG&E infrastructure can support that size of a charger in the area. So it may be a bigger hurdle than the $150,000. Talking about, next slide, please. So some of the advantages or the comparisons are a diesel engine is supported by the current infrastructure. We have everything we need in place to support that type of an engine, because that's currently what we use. The electric engine would require a new infrastructure. In diesel engines, local maintenance, most of the repair is done either by your mechanics or oftentimes by the City of Monterey mechanics when it's work that exceeds the capabilities and capacities of the shop here in Pacific Grove. And then sometimes we have to take it to a shop like in Salinas, a truck repair place there. So there's a lot of local resources to do repairs on the diesel engine. That's not true for the electric engine. The particular one that we would recommend if the council should decide to go to an electric engine would be the Rosenbauer engine, which is the Austrian manufacturer, and their closest service facilities in Modesto. And that's the only service facility within any reasonable range. There are pretty significant cost differences between a diesel and an electric engine. Diesel engine, unfortunately, even with the huge price increases, we're looking at about $880,000 to purchase a new diesel engine. And all the electric engine manufacturers basically gave us the same story. They didn't commit to a price, but they said plan on spending about twice of what the comparable diesel engine from us would cost. So the significantly increased cost for the electric engine. And then, as I said, there's also the unknown infrastructure costs or the additional infrastructure costs that are associated with that. The one area where an electric engine certainly would be a better alternative is in the operations and maintenance cost, because operation of the electric engine is probably about a third of what the diesel engine is because you're buying diesel fuel versus using the electricity, which is a much cheaper energy source. Then, of course, diesel is a known technology. It's tried and true and been used in the fire service and in the trucking industry for many, many years. And the electric is still something new, so unknown what other issues might come up in the future. So it is staff's recommendation that we believe that the electric technology, I think the next time Pacific Grove would be considering purchasing an engine, I would be surprised if it's not an electric engine, because certainly that's the direction the world is going. But at this point, we don't believe that the technology is appropriate and vetted enough to make it a viable option. Next slide, please. For specific numbers, I'm going to defer to Tori Hanna, but we've researched options for financing the engine because I understand that the apparatus the vehicle replacement fund for the engine is not where it needs to be. And my understanding is that interest rates that would be available are in the a little bit over 4% range. Options for a diesel engine are much greater than for an electric engine. Because it's new technology, financing firms will say they won't finance it for a term longer than 10 years. So it limits the financing options quite a bit. Next slide, please. We did get a proposal from Pierce Manufacturing, which is the manufacturer of your current engines and is also the manufacturer of pretty much the entire fleet that we use now and ones comparable to the ones that the city of Monterey has recently purchased and the city of Carmel just purchased one at the beginning of this month or committed to purchase one at the beginning of this month. This is a proposal based on the Houston Galveston area council, which is a cooperative purchasing. So they basically have gone through the whole RFP proposal process and know that they're going to sell them on a nationwide basis. So they get a much better price than if Pacific Grove says, we're going to buy one engine on this contract. They know they're going to sell probably even hundreds of engines. And so that's where you're going to get your best price. And the net price, including a discount for 100% prepayment, comes out to just a little over $880,000. So next slide. Staff is recommending that you move forward with the purchase of this diesel engine, but certainly we're looking for directions on the various options that you see listed in front of you there. And that's my report.
Do we have public comment? Please come forward. Welcome. Do we have anybody in the fire station tonight or are you
no,
all here?
Yeah, we're all here. We can run over there pretty quick. So good evening. My name is Pat Moore and I'm president of the Monterey Firefighters Association. I work at the station here. And in fact, I live in town. I live up in Candy Cane Lane with my wife and I and my children. So thank you for allowing me a chance to speak. I want to thank also Mr. Harvey for allowing us to have an opportunity to provide you input as well from the people actually working on the engine. Just to kind of add, I want to repeat too much what Chief Penholzer said, but just a couple of things to consider. When we purchase a fire engine, we have a committee, and that committee is made up of various ranks within our department. They talk to different manufacturers, talk to different people that own and operate the equipment to find out what's best for us as a fire department. And that spec sitting before you is the one that we came up with through that committee. In fact, we purchased 2 of those engines and we've been using them for about the past year or so, and they've served us well. Our concern obviously is if we go electric engine, there's not a lot out there. It's new technology. It's not proven. We don't know. They're doing the research on it would be very difficult to do. Something else to consider is, although it doesn't happen very often, we do have to work as a standalone unit. It could be an earthquake. It could be a tsunami, wildland fire, even a power outage. And we know that diesel works. We know that diesel fuel is readily available. We don't know how electric engine will operate under that capacity. And the kind of last thing I'll touch on is, as firefighters, we always look towards new technology to improve our ability to provide service to the citizens, to you, to the community. And looking at the electric fire engine, there are some small advantages, but overall, it really doesn't provide a significant advantage to us. In other words, it really doesn't help me to do my job to provide better service to the citizens. So those are just a few things I'd like for you to consider tonight. I appreciate the position you're in as a resident and someone works here. I understand you would like to go green. And I appreciate that. But as Chief Penholzer said, it is new technology and it seems pretty risky at this time. The spec you have before you is proven. It's been great piece of apparatus for us. And I hope that you'll consider moving forward with that tonight. And that's it. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Welcome.
Thank you. I couldn't imagine hearing 2 more articulate, informative, and factual presentations from the 2 fire personnel that just presented. Unless any of you, as a seasoned, experienced fire personnel person, I can't imagine there's any discussion necessary on this other than to take a vote unanimously and go with the diesel engine. What can you add to what was just presented? Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone from our virtual audience wishing to speak?
Yes, sir. Peggy Gibbs?
Welcome.
Hear me?
Yes.
Great. I just wanted to say that we are fortunate in Pacific Grove to have a superior fire department staff. And I personally have received services from them that have benefited me. I can't imagine what it would be like if our power grid would go down and they could not come to help any family in need or any place within the area in need. So I urge you to take the recommendation to go towards diesel at this moment, which is something that we know is good and proven, and wait until we wouldn't be the 6th fire engine in the entire world that went green. So again, I think that the presentations you got were extremely thorough and very thoughtful. And I urge you to take the recommendation to use the diesel engine as the way to go forward at this time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Inga Lawrence and Doimer?
Welcome.
Thank you. I found a rather chilling statement in the agenda report, which said, the city previously set aside funds for the eventual purchase of a new fire engine. However, due to the impacts of COVID-19 and changing priorities, funds were transitioned back to the general fund or allocated to capital projects, end quote. It appears a large amount of set aside funds, and my understanding over $100,000, disappeared into the balancing of the city finances during COVID by use of the funds meant for a different purpose and were not replaced with ARPA funding meant to make the city whole again. Instead, our ARPA funds were used for promotions and raises for staff with increased pension costs. Now we're supposed to go into debt over many years to replace what was reallocated, appropriated, spent. I call this classic smoke and mirror financing, incorporating the bait and switch tactics. This lack of transparency is not engendering any public trust. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No other hands are raised.
All right. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief. I'm just curious, how many municipalities does the Monterey Fire Department serve?
We serve the cities of Monterey, Pacific Grove, Carmel, Sand City, and the La Mesa housing area and the Monterey Regional Airport.
And with that shared service, has there ever been a discussion of purchasing like shared equipment, assets, fire trucks, et cetera?
Interestingly enough, we had that conversation at the city council meeting in Monterey last
Nice,
night.
okay.
But the contracts were originally set up because each jurisdiction had, or each of the larger jurisdictions already had their own fire department with their own station, their own apparatus and equipment, that it would just made sense to roll that all into the contracts and leave it that way. There was an intention at the very early stages of where this all came from, was an intention to form it like a JPA or something along those lines, which then all the jurisdictions would transfer their assets to the JPA, and then the JPA would be responsible for the, and that never materialized for a variety of reasons. And so we're here kind of in this first phase or step of that process.
Okay, and so then does the Pacific Grove fire truck only service Pacific Grove?
No, a provision in the agreement allows us to use the fleet as if it were singly owned by or operated by a single fire department. And as a matter of fact, right now, because your engine and is still undergoing its $75,000 repairs, there's a City of Monterey reserve engine sitting in the station here. And that's one of the advantages of the contract, is that we can move vehicles around as necessary. And it is possible that a Pacific Grove engine could be placed into service in a Monterey fire station as well.
Okay, so this is a conceptual discussion. And for me, I'm not comfortable with approving this sort of significant expenditure out of the budget process. And this purchase does not appear to be an emergency. As you stated, a couple council meetings back, we did approve a repair, I think in the amount of about $80,000. And so, you know, I would really prefer to see this expenditure in regular budget process. It could be placed at the top of the list of the next budget cycle, which is going to start in a few months. And perhaps this is on the capital improvement project, like this is the top of that list. It also, waiting a few months will give staff time to identify any savings available in the budget process to offset. I mean, this is a significant expense. And so for me, my preference would be is for staff to, you know, in February, when we start with the budget meetings, that this is the number one priority, if that's what the majority of council, decides to allocate the monies to. I mean, we had, significant ARPA funds. As the caller said, we had transferred money from this sort of reserve account to the general fund. And I just, I'm not able to support moving forward with this large of an expenditure, not during the budget process. So that's just where I'm at. Thank you.
Mayor, if I may make a comment on that.
Sure.
So while it doesn't constitute an emergency, one of the reasons we are here this month is because we've seen huge increases in the prices of fire apparatus. We've been told by the manufacturer there's a 6.5% price increase that goes into effective November 1. So that would mean the price would go up by about $100,000. And then they've also, and they have regular annual increases February 1 of about 2%. So we'd be looking at a substantial increase in the price. Furthermore, because the city of Monterey purchased a truck last night and the city of Carmel purchased an engine earlier this month, we've been also told by the vendor that we would get the benefit as if it were one entity purchasing that. Not a huge savings. It's a couple of $1,000s that each agency would save on that. So that would be a savings that Pacific Grove would not be able to realize if the purchase didn't go in together with the other ones.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Chief, for the thorough research and all that you presented. I actually have, a few other items that I thought of why it's a good idea to wait on the electric apparatus. Just including kind of the workforce development of the people's training and the knowledge of being able to work on these. Let alone the infrastructure. I would imagine certifications would need to change, and there'd be a whole education process for the fire department and the folks that would work on these engines in the future. So I very much appreciate what you've presented and think that the diesel engine is the right choice for now. I also appreciate the big cities with the bigger budgets who are taking the leap and testing out what I would imagine are really great, cool technologies in fire trucks. And I hope we can stay close to those learnings and be able to get in line and purchase one as soon as it makes some more sense. I wanted to ask Ms. Hannah to address the finance question that's circulating, kind of going around about the reserve fund and borrowing it and not putting it back. Can you refresh me on that, please?
Yes, we had originally put approximately $130,000 in the vehicle replacement fund. And during COVID-19, when we were seeing substantial losses of revenue, we were looking to cover some of those deficits. So council approved to transfer that money back to the general fund. And then as part of the ARPA program, approximately $65,000 was again allocated. But then when we came back to this budget year and there was some initiatives to want to fund some other capital improvement projects, that was moved out, and there were going to ensue further discussions of the fire engine and whether or not that might be something that should be financed or looked looked at from another long-term perspective.
So we council took that money during COVID, used it, and then had the opportunity to put it back when in the ARPA funding process, but chose not to, is sort of what I heard. And so I think at this time, you know, we should move forward with getting a new truck. I mean, everything is increasing in price. I saw on the slide, it said this price is only good until October 31st. There's a guaranteed 6.5% increase. And that will, I think, every month continue to go up. So I support this, the diesel and the diesel technology and figuring out the financing. I also think if we wait and are going to finance this, that price will go up as well, the interest rate for the loan. So I support it. Thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. I remember in 1989, when Loma Prieta earthquake hit and the peninsula was out of power for, geez, I think it was 11 days. Beautiful astronomy, but you're not going to charge a fire truck. So I like the idea. I've got an electric vehicle myself, but when it comes to providing, you know, emergency services, I just don't know if I am ready to go there. So I also support, and that's what we're being asked to provide directions. I support going with the diesel powered truck, just like Monterey and Carmel have recently done. So if I've got a couple questions for Tori, the vehicle replacement fund balance, it's currently zero. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. And we had $190,000 at one point. We took out 130 for general fund purposes during COVID, and then took out another 60 or so for the 200,000 of additional CIP projects that council voted on recently. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Where did the other $140,000 come from? Maybe you can send something to me on that, but I'm curious because it sounds like some of the projects we approved, like a skate park, et cetera, came at the expense of not financing a new fire engine. So I'd like to know exactly where the other funds came from at some point. I've got another question as far as financing goes. The chief mentioned something like 4% that Monterey was able to get financing at. What would we be able to get financing at?
Right now, I took a proposal from the community leasing partners, which partners a lot with the fire apparatus industry. And they have included in your packet is some of the rates that they provided. At a 10-year rate, they would be willing to lock in the 4.24% rate for us if we wanted to go ahead and proceed. I did take one other competitive informal quote for the same period, and that was at 4.87. And we are in a rising interest rate environment. So I don't know how long they will hold that 4.24. They said they would at least hold it till the end of this meeting. If we wanted to decide to bring back an agreement, they would honor that for us.
What is that tied to? Is that, you know, San Francisco cost of funds or?
It was a lending rate at the time that they gave us. It wasn't tied to anything specific. It's more comparative to what's on the open market. And I can say right now that I've been able to actually buy a couple of investments for just over 4% right now, to give you an idea of what other investments are going for in the 5-year space.
Okay. So how soon could you lock in something after you've given council direction to proceed with purchasing? Because I think the Fed's going to be raising, but 75 basis points or something coming up fairly soon.
Councilmember Coletti, through the mayor, should the council approve that this evening, I can go back to the lender and ask them to forward the documents to get them ready for signature, and that would be sufficient for them to hold the rate for us for any additional approvals that might be needed.
And that's somewhere around 4.5%.
4.24%.
Excellent.
For 10 years.
Okay, thank you. A question for the chief. You mentioned a 30-month, potential 30-month delay before receiving the new vehicle. Will the current truck last that long?
yeah, I'm confident that it'll last that long. We might see a few more repairs in the interim, but hopefully nothing like what we recently seen.
If it'll last 30 months, will it last 5 years?
That's a good question.
Yeah, okay. I'll just leave that on the table then. Okay, well, I guess the question before us is whether we're going to finance a diesel or finance an electric, and I'm going to go with diesel.
Councilmember Smith.
Thank you. I'm supportive of the diesel that was presented tonight. I appreciate members of the fire department for coming out and explaining the reasons for that. And I definitely agree with them. And so it's not time, unfortunately, for the electric. And we can stay in step with our sharing agencies that share the department and move forward with that. So that's where I'm at with it.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Thank you. Thank you for the presentation, Chief. Tori, when you talked about locking in the rate, and it sounds like it's about 30 months out before we are able to purchase a fire truck. Does that rate lock in now? And then how does it work?
For this particular payment structure, it would be our first payment would be due in August 2023. So it would be prior to receiving that we would start paying back the lender. They did present another option where it's a year out where we do our first payment in August 2024. However, that goes really to an 11-year rate because really there's going to be accrued interest on that. So that rate is 4.72%. So we would be initiating payment upon the loan because they would be advancing the funds to Pierce, to the fire apparatus company to get started on production and also achieve, I think it is a $50,000, just under $50,000 discount for advance payment.
Okay. We're not the Los Angeles Fire Department, obviously. They have the bucks to probably put an electric together, but I'm all for the diesel for purchasing that.
Yeah,
Councilmember Pedori.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Penholzer. I'm definitely for the electric. I want to make that on record. The question I have, however, is it appears to me based on the agenda item that was put in that our fire engines are averaging about 10,000 miles roughly every year. Is that accurate? It's got 120,000 miles on it. So roughly 12, 15 years.
That would be accurate. Most trucks will run a lot of miles, but the diesel motors like to run from here to, across the country kind of operation. So that's why diesel, and we drive them exactly the opposite way, which is not good for the motors. We drive them for a few minutes and then shut them down, drive them for a few minutes and shut them down. That's the nature of the business. And so that's why we typically don't get the kind of mileage out of a vehicle that like long haul truckers would.
Right. So the question is, so there's been a lot of activity in like neighboring cities related to fire trucks, and I happened to chance upon the Carmel Pinecone for what Carmel did. So Carmel Pinecone, the two engines that are there have 60,000 miles on it. Ours has 120,000 miles on it. Why can't we just use the two that are being disposed of there for Pacific Grove?
The city of Carmel will be only getting rid of one engine. They will be replacing one engine and then placing the current frontline engine into reserve status. That won't be happening for another 2 years because they're also facing the same delivery time issues, and that engine is being replaced because it's no longer one that should be kept in service for a number of reasons.
So so the expectancy for fire engine is based on factors other than mileage then?
It's a combination of factors of age, mileage, and repair costs.
Okay. My view is that, and the other thing I wanted to point out is, thank you again for the thorough presentation. One of the things that I've found out is the president has signed the Inflation Reduction Act. and I've confirmed that fire trucks are eligible for grants through the Inflation Reduction Act. I don't know what that amount is, but that is definitely in place. I also know that similarly, the Inflation Reduction Act does provide grants related to charging infrastructure too. So that's 150,000 and whatever like additional offsets that you can get through for purchasing the fire engine. Both of these, the amounts, I don't know what the exact amounts of the grants will be. And to be honest, I don't know how the process will work as well. But I do know that CARB, California Air Resources Board, which operates out of Monterey County, they do have a lot of grants right now on their website for heavy duty vehicles as well as for personal vehicles. So my view is that even though it looks like a really high cost for electric vehicles, it certainly there are grants that will offset the high cost. In addition, the maintenance sort of related to these vehicles, if I look at it from a combustion engine standpoint, the maintenance that has been quoted earlier a couple of weeks ago, so it was 75,000. If you just multiply all these costs over the years, it's going to be well over $500,000. So the net effect of the cost of a vehicle for a fire engine is not necessarily $850,000. It's $850,000 plus those annual year costs that you need to add up. At the end of the run, you're going to be at a similar kind of like point for costs for both these items. And I would also like to point out to the council that we have together decided upon a goal for environmental stewardship, which reads identify potential projects that foster environmental stewardship, reduce the city's carbon footprint, and allow eligibility for new Institute of Local Government Beacon Awards. I think this is a prime example of reducing carbon footprint from the city. And so my view is that we need to bring this back to the council next budget year. We'll have more information on what kind of grants are available, what can we avail of, and therefore we can analyze to see whether we need to move forward with a diesel or a fire or an electric fire truck. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief Panholzer, for bringing this forward. And was disappointed when Councilmember Pedori brought up the EV question about electric vehicles, and you discussed this with Carmel as well. Disappointing that the technology just hasn't been out there. While I appreciate that there may be grants, this is still a substantial amount of money for an EV. And if there's only two vehicles in operation at this time, I'm not confident that we can wait years until we start seeing it. But again, I think the question is excellent. And every time the city needs to buy a vehicle, absolutely, or anything that uses fuel, we need to look at going green. So I want to be clear on what you're asking. You're asking for a commitment or approval from council to make a commitment to buy one Pierce Manufacturing Enforcer 1500 GPM pumper contract FS 12-19 and the product code. That's what you're asking tonight?
Mr. Mayor, yes, that is the staff recommendation.
Okay. And it includes a prepayment discount, which means payment in full. Is that correct?
That is correct. As Ms. Hannah said, though, it's the finance company would make the payment in full. And as far as the manufacturer is concerned, we've made payment in full, and then we can make the lease payments or the financing payments to the financing entity.
And I think as mentioned that this price is good till when? When does this price, as you'd mentioned, we all know inflation, when does this price 881,648.48 expire?
The quote expires at the end of this month, October 31st, with a guaranteed 6.5% increase if we get another quote for November 1.
Okay, well, that's very sobering. This end of this month, That's not very far away. Okay, just to be precise. And the financing, I'm with this large purchase, the financing is huge and the interest costs, thank you for the table, range from a low of 135,000 to a high of 377,000. 377, that's nearly half the price of this engine. So you're asking us for approval for a financing option at this point?
That is correct.
Mayor, just for clarification, we can go out to do a formal RFP to see if there are any additional rates, but we are in a rising rate environment. If we do lock in the 4.24%, we would still have some ability to see if we wanted to put a larger down when we have the year-end budget, when we look at the year-end budget figures, which will be in November, but at least we would lock in the commitment to the 4.24% rate should the council want to go to that amount, that percentage.
Okay, so if council approves commitment to sign a purchase contract for this engine, that payments usually due in what, 30, 60, 90 days? It's not due the same day you sign, right?
30 days. It is 30 days.
It's 30 days. So end of November.
And the city's first payment on the lease would be August 2023. That would allow us to place time in the fiscal year 23-24 budget for the principal and interest payments.
Well, I guess, and then I'm going to circle back to Councilmember McAdams' comments about the budget. So it seems like you've done the research. You're saying this is the fire engine. We've discussed the possibility of other options, and it seems council is okay with this diesel engine, as I am. And so then it becomes a question of the financing, which is a significant amount of money. Where does it come out of the budget? Sounds like we have some time in November. I'd appreciate for staff to come back and talk more about these financing options and tell us, give us a preview of what it's going to look like in our upcoming budgets. It sounds like we don't need to make a decision tonight on the financing option, and we're not prepared to discuss the budget, are we?
Just that we would not be able to lock in the 4.24% rate. We would be subject to whatever rate they have available for us when we choose to go back out. And if we were to approach them in November, we would possibly not get that rate. It depends on what interest rates are at that particular time.
And so when does the rate lock expire? I'm sorry, I missed that on my notes.
We have already passed the date because this was originally on the last agenda, but they agreed to hold it until after this meeting. Should the council provide us with direction to go forward with that agreement? If not, I don't know if they would honor it, just because they're in a rising rate environment.
And does this rate pertain to a specific term or the amount of the down payment?
It pertains to the 10-year and possibly the 7-year term. They would not comment on the 15 years since that's going out, but definitely the 10-year. The down payment, I don't think that would be a factor because we could prepay at any time.
But the down payment you have as you have a no down payment and an 80,000 down. Okay. So which exactly do you recommend, or you're asking for approval for tonight? in terms of the financing option?
If we were to move forward and try to lock in that rate, we could go forward with the 80,000 down. I believe that in just looking at our revenue structure in this next fiscal year, getting some preliminary numbers, that we would be able to make that down payment without going into our unrestricted fund balance.
And do you need to commit to a 7 or a 10-year?
Yes, I would need to commit to a structure to make the rate with that structure. But as mentioned, the lender said that there wouldn't be any penalties for prepayment. So if we paid more, then that would assist us in future payments.
Well, I still, I wish we had seen the budget picture for this year and next year with this, but here we are, rising rate environment for materials purchase as well as interest. With some trepidation, I guess I would go ahead with the $80,000 down and commit and not wait for the market to rise anyhow. I see a whole bunch of hands. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. And what does it look like to just cash pay it with the discount?
We would be going into on our unrestricted amount to make that payment. If we were to try to finance it outright, I would need to get back if we really wanted to look at going up to the 882,000, close to $1 million, to see how that would look for us. I know that I see like we're probably swinging $200,000 or $300,000 better than anticipated. So when I say $80,000, I feel pretty comfortable with that. But beyond that, I really feel like I would need to get to better review the numbers.
Right. So, because you would be looking at saving almost 50,000 plus 210,000 in interest. So, you're almost at 300,000 to just cash pay it.
And Councilmember McAdams, through the mayor, just to that if we do pay more on it, then we would in essence be reducing the amount of interest that is due on the principal balance, because we would be paying more. Let's say council wanted to choose to pay another 200,000, then on the unexpired balance, the interest rate would be based on the remaining outstanding amounts.
Okay. And do you have that projection, or do you have what that looks like? Or when would you let the council know, hey, we could pay an extra 200,000?
Councilmember McAdams, to the mayor, right now, I am planning to bring back the year-end figures at the second meeting, the first or second meeting in November, no later than the second meeting. Ideally, I'd like to do it in the first meeting, but we're still working on audit and a little bit down staff. So I am hoping really for the first meeting in November.
Okay. And then when will the city need to replace the reserve fire truck? Chief?
The other engine in the fleet, it's currently the frontline engine, will be placed into reserve status, and it still has a considerable life left in it. So we're probably looking at least 10 years.
10 years. Okay. And is there a plan to purchase another fire truck in place?
We don't
Ms.
have.
Hannah, I mean, for 10 years, is there a plan to put money aside? So we're a little more prepared when we have to replace the reserve fire truck?
Not at this time. We have not set aside a vehicle replacement policy for that, but it is something that we can definitely look at.
Okay. I mean, again, without numbers or budgeting or knowing where, I think the payment might look at $11,000 to $12,000 a month for 10 years. I don't know. It's really hard for me to, of course I want a new fire truck, and I get it. It's an asset that we have to replace, but at the same time, without having, I don't feel prepared. I don't feel like there's much preparation.
And, we're kind of backed up into the corner here, right? So I just would really encourage staff to have a plan to replace the reserve fire truck in 10 years and really stick to that plan as much as possible. Thanks.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
I can make a motion if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay, I move that we authorize the purchasing of the diesel engine from Pierce Manufacturing as listed in the agenda report for $881,648.48. And authorize Ms. Hannah to lock in the 4.24 interest rate 10-year term with the 80,000 down payment
Second.
for financing.
Discussion on this.
Yeah, we'll
I
have
think the number is 857,371 because we're not getting a prepaid discount.
We will, because once you get the loan, you use that to pay 100% of
okay,
it, so you
okay.
get the discount.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. And who seconded?
I seconded it.
Okay. Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. And just to clarify the motion, this would be for proposal number 40916-22A. Is that correct? As found on page 228 of our binder, our packet? I'm pretty sure it is, but I just want to get that on the record. So a question for Ms. Hannah, the 4.24%, that's a fixed interest rate over the term of the loan?
Yes, it is.
Okay, so based on this proposal, option A or exhibit A, there's $71,000 in sales tax. Are you proposing that we're going to finance the sales tax?
It would be the complete purchase that we would finance.
I don't want to finance sales tax. So I would suggest that the motion be reconsidered to pay for the sales tax directly out of our own budget, our general fund, and not finance the 8.75% sales tax amount. And just one final point, I believe we should have used our ARPA funds to pay for this vehicle instead of increasing salaries and benefits. Thank you.
Was that a suggestion or a substitute motion?
I'll make a substitute motion, Your Honor. Thank you. Unless you want to consider it a friendly amendment, that's up to you.
So can I ask a clarifying question for your friendly amendment of, because I was saying there'd be an $80,000 down payment to go with this loan terms. You're suggesting 70,000 approximately for the sales tax. So we could do no money down on the loan and use this 80,000 that I think is going to be in surplus when we look at the mid-year budget for the sales tax. Is that sort of how you're looking at it?
No, I mean, the 80,000 down just gets you a better price. And you're still going to have to pay sales tax on whatever the total cost is. Is that not correct? How's that not correct? Maybe you can explain it to.
Just Councilmember Coletti, into the full price of the vehicle, it includes the sales tax. So when we look at the 882,000, that does include the sales tax. So if we are paying 80,000 down, you could say that covers the sales tax. But going back to Councilmember Tomlinson's comment, are we wanting to do the 80,000 down plus the additional sales tax payment? I guess that would be the clarification that I would be seeking.
What's the $80,000 being used for?
It goes straight to reduce the amount. So if we have an $882,000 amount that we are requesting to be financed, we are now only requesting $802,000 to be financed.
So when you get the actual loan documents, you would be paying sales tax as part of the loan. Is that correct?
Yes, it would be considered in the full price of the vehicle.
I think you pay the sales tax outside of it. I mean, that's, you shouldn't be financing your sales tax. So I would say 150 down.
So I don't accept that amendment because we heard from our finance director that she's not positive of the surplus being in this 150 range. So I either think we do 0 down and pay the sales tax or finance the sales tax and do 80,000 down. one or the other.
Okay, hold on a second.
All
Let's hear from other council members. Anyone else want to weigh in? Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you. I mean, if we're talking about paying additional down payment, what would, Ms. Hannah, do you know what the maximum that we could potentially put as a down payment?
I could roughly say you could do 150,000. I don't know if I would feel any comfortable going beyond that until we have the final numbers. And we would have, even if we begin the agreement now, start the agreement process, we can make an additional payment towards the loan to reduce that amount as part of this whole financing process. And that way interest isn't accruing on the unpaid balance. So should you go forward and you start out with $80,000 and say, hey, I want to reduce that in November when we get some more numbers, or at the beginning of the budget, you can say, hey, I'd rather pay an additional $200,000 just as you would. And then you're not paying as much interest because you are paying, you don't have that much balance outstanding on your loan any longer.
Thank you. I mean, I understand that, but this is like a $900,000 budget augmentation, not during budget process. Right. And so I just really, I'm just totally uncomfortable. I mean, I just don't.
Yeah, the fact that there's no prepayment penalty drives me to just go ahead with the 80,000 down payment, lock in the current rates so we don't run the risk of a higher interest rate. Do the purchase now so we not incur the 6% and nail it down. And then when we see more budget numbers, hopefully by the second meeting in November, then we have some confidence that we're going to put more money down, because I don't like paying interest any more than anybody else. And and that's where I'm going. So I'm good with the motion as is. Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Yeah. I second it, but looking at it in perspective, I'm still seconding it. But we're also talking about public safety. That's important for the city of Pacific Grove.
Councilmember Coletti.
Point of clarification, if we are paying this $80,000, then the $70,000 or $71,000 in sales tax shown on this proposal would be less than what's shown, correct? No?
That Councilmember Coletti, that still would be the cost of sales tax on the vehicle itself. It would just not be a cost that we would have financed. If you're saying you're going to be paying more, the vehicle itself, the cost of the vehicle itself would still be that much.
Right. Okay. No, you're right. And it's just the amount of discounted amount on the based on the 46,000. Okay. Well, I would say pay as much as you can down, but it looks like we're only going to be able to do 80.
Well, the motion on the floor is 80, but my understanding is we're directing staff to come back no later than the second meeting in November, and we'll talk about possibly putting forth more money to pay down the loan.
And we're going to have an ordinance to amend the budget, I suppose, right?
And we can discuss that at that time.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. May we have a vote, please?
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Councilmembers Coletti,
Aye.
McAdams,
Aye.
Baduri,
No.
Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries 6-1.
Moving on to item 11C, empty home tax. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Chief. Ms. Kendall, if you have a moment, can you bring up the slides, please? So something for me I've struggled with over the years as a council member is identifying, I think we all have, we've had a lot of conversations, identifying revenues and, paying down the CalPERS debt.
We have recently supported salary increases from one-time funding. And I'm not sure how sustainable those are. Next slide. First, thank you to the voters. You know, we have increased TOT. We recently increased sales tax. And for me, the annual budget increase in CalPERS debt, it really tells me those increases may not be sustainable for the city. And we are really capped as far as how far those tax percentages can go. So there's little room to increase sales tax. We might be able to increase TOT at some point or add like a additional fee or bed fee or something. But we really haven't addressed a solution for the city CalPERS debt. And as a city, we have limited revenue resources. We have sales tax, property tax, TOT, and you know, maybe a little cannabis tax if that is approved in November. So that's it. Recently, or a few months ago, the EDC brought forth empty tax concept for commercial buildings for extended vacancies that we had in our downtown. And due to the pandemic and the, you know, incredible impacts that the pandemic has had to small businesses, we as a council did not move forward. And so this really sparked an interest for me to look into the concept of empty homes tax. It is one of the many solutions for cities who have a lot of second, third, fourth homes in their neighborhoods that sit empty, or cities who are looking to support affordable housing projects, down payment programs, support for renters, and really like make an investment in housing solutions. So in the city of Santa Cruz, they have a empty homes tax that the voters will be voting on in November. And Cindy Dawson, I pulled this quote. It really resonated with me. The community is looking around and seeing friends, families, and colleagues pushed out by skyrocketing housing costs. If a property owner opts to keep their house vacant, this creates a pathway for that property owner to support this community they want to be a part of and meet the number one need. And right now, the number one need in all cities in California is housing. So the next slide, please. The 2020 census data for housing units, and this is the data that AMBAG used for the RENA process, showed 8,121 total housing units in Pacific Grove, with 6,772 occupied and 1,349 vacant. Next, in the RENA process, thank you, Sandra. And this AMBAG did it for Monterey, San Benito, and Santa Cruz County. So this is the data that was used for all three counties. Next slide, please. And so empty home taxes, the programs have shown to encourage owners to rent out their homes long-term, promote home sales to buyers who want to live full-time in our city or in whatever city, provide annual revenues for critical infrastructure improvements and city services, and provide annual revenues to support affordable housing projects, down payment assistance, renters assistance, and other housing programs. The next slide, please. So this is a conceptual discussion, and like any tax, this would need to go to a vote of the residents and be approved in order to take effect. Similar to TOT, our full-time residents would not be burdened or impacted by the empty homes tax. And in other cities where they're having this on the ballot this November is San Francisco, Napa, Santa Cruz, Berkeley, and there are others. And the opposition in those campaigns tend to be realtors and property investors. We saw that same opposition during Measure M when we had the ballot measure for short-term rentals. And so that's the same opposition that those cities are experiencing for their empty homes tax. And so really for next steps, this is a conceptual discussion. One would be to watch how these ballot and tax measures do in November in the upcoming election in the other cities. For our city to have, and I just think overall for our commitment to affordable housing, helping renters to have a better understanding of our 1,349 vacant homes. The city of Carmel has 40% of their housing units are vacant. And I don't know if Pacific Grove wants to go that way, but we're halfway there. We're at about 20% of our housing stock sits vacant. Again, have staff look into other cities, how they are defining a vacant home. So what would our city's definition be like? Some cities also have done like a sliding scale. So a condo isn't taxed as much as a single family resident. And also they are offering waivers for inherited properties, et cetera. So, I mean, really each city is creating its own definitions, which tends to be, standard. So, and then of course to follow the outcomes in Berkeley, Napa, Santa Cruz, et cetera. And I think that's it.
Do we have any public comment on this item? Please come forward. Welcome.
Nice to see you all again. I've been here a little while. I wish I would have known that you were going to discuss financing and I would have never made my last comment. But now we'll get moving on this issue. I like what Mr. Coletti said during that discussion you had about the financing of the fire trucks. Why did you give so many raises, which subsequently kick in pension increases when you have financial obligations in mind? Seems to me like you're concerned about how much, some of you are more concerned than others about how much money you're going to spend, interest rates, so on and so forth. And now you come to us. Here's my summary. You don't have a taxation problem. You have a spending problem. Why did you authorize all those raises and pensions? Don't you think ahead? It's like the guy who comes home with his paycheck and takes his wife out to an expensive dinner in Pebble Beach, then comes home and realizes, gee, we didn't pay the PG&E bill. I mean, come on, we can do better than this. There is no reason to be taxing people that worked hard all their lives to buy a second home, which most of these people eventually come and move into those homes. In my neighborhood, all the empty homes were eventually filled by people who had the money to buy the home and just sat on it and used it occasionally on weekends. Maybe had their kids come and stay there for the summer. And then eventually when they retired, they moved in. I think it's unjust and unfair to considering taxing someone who has a home and doesn't live in it. Just think of the money we're saving with the non-calls. Nobody gets a heart attack there. Nobody needs to call the police. Nobody needs to call the fire department. There's ADR to come with an ambulance. Okay, so I'm against, and I'm surprised. I hope we have some Zoom people from the realtor business. Hope we have some realtors here. We're going to come up and comment on this a little more articulately. This kind of gets me hot. You don't have a taxation problem, you have a spending problem, and that needs to be adjusted. And I've been watching this happen for years. I was here in 2002 when then city manager Ross Hubbard lied, misrepresented the cost of the CalPERS program that he was suggesting they all approve. And that's why you're in the position you're in now with so much pension debt, because a group of citizens took the city to court, to Superior Court in Monterey to have that overturned. And for some reason, the judge couldn't find in favor of the citizens, but found in favor of the city. And the city manager, who he suspected actually witnessed, saying it was going to cost $50,000. And how many millions in debt are we now? Thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and staff, and council. Our number one generating revenue for the city of Pacific Grove is property taxes. I think someone said 8.9. So those homeowners are paying property taxes. I want you to all think about Prop 19. If these folks decide to sell their second homes, I don't think they're third or fourth, but second homes. If they choose to sell those homes and someone from outside of
the Monterey Peninsula brings their current property tax base with them that they've had for 30 years, what happens to our property tax base? So I want you to all think about that too before trying to tax, hoping someone's going to sell their home or rent it out. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone else here? How about the virtual audience?
We do have some callers. Mark Jacquin.
Welcome.
Okay, unmuted. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'd like to speak against this proposal as it's currently constructed. Slightly better than last time because it's finally had a purpose defined and illustrated for staff's use in direction and research. But it's frankly, a vacancy tax is sharp and an antagonistic policy that can appear as a type of discrimination against a class of property owner. This whole aspect is being ignored. Secondly, we were presented with sound bites from other cities. I don't really care what the Santa Cruz people are talking about their city. This isn't a competitive race between us and Santa Cruz or Santa Barbara. No, they say, we're living in Pacific Grove. Let's talk about Pacific Grove people. Prop 19 was a very good caveat that Ms. Beck brought up earlier. But in contrast to that kind of detail, we've been offered a lack of any kind of data that drives what we need to do and why we would even consider this option. The summary characterization of all people who would oppose this are those who wouldn't like to. And what is that data driven? Do we have a survey that said that? Or is this just someone's pull it out of your ear type of idea? To mention that you use the AMBAG's RENA process as a point of departure was disappointing because the AMBAG's RENA process was denied was voted against by our sister city, Carmel by the Sea, our sister city, Monterey. Only our representative to AMBAG seemed to consider those numbers as palatable and sensible in spite of the impossibility of fitting them in our own city. So it's not efficacious. And while there is research that justifies this kind of vacancy tax in certain instances, for the most part, the positive results of the vacancy tax, the salutary effects are in large cities with a large rent control established procedures and regimes and large corporate owners. If you're trying to template cheaper housing, surveys that I sent you in the last letter show that housing prices don't differ because of this. Condo prices do have a bump in certain conditions. The research is at best ambiguous, and the moral efficacy for this sort of thing is very, very tenuous at best. I think this is just it strikes the appearance of a shiny object that we're just reaching out. Oh, someone else is doing something. Let's just roll out and do this. Oh, that's not the way to do policy. That's not the way. And we just don't need another tax because someone else is going down that road. I suggest you shelve this. It will be considered in the course of the housing element in the future. Let's leave this die for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Pinteritz.
Welcome.
Hello, thank you. My name is Adam Pinteritz. I'm the Director of Government and Community Relations for the Monterey County Association of Realtors. And well, gee, I guess I've been beaten to the punch tonight. In the spirit of looking for collaboration and common ground, I absolutely agree that we must address our local and regional housing problems. That is a top priority, clearly. However, a vacancy tax is not an effective means of doing so. Two examples I would cite. Vancouver implemented a vacancy tax in 2017, and over the subsequent 2 years, it only increased the housing supply and occupancy by 0.3%. So not exactly a lot of bang for your buck. Melbourne implemented a vacancy tax also in 2017, and it's noted that it only raised about 25% of the revenues that they were expecting it to raise, which then subsequently failed to adequately fund the housing programs that they were trying to fund. So those are just some examples, and you know, if at the scale of those cities, if they can't see good results, then I don't really see how a city of the size of Pacific Grove could expect to do better. Even if exemptions are made for properties undergoing improvements or in cases where the owner is traveling, receiving medical care, or recently passed away, The burden of proving that they qualify for the exemptions would still fall on owners who are either being punished for doing the right thing by improving their properties and adding administrative burdens to those improvements, or B, disproportionately and unfairly placing the burden of that proof on those who are traveling, receiving medical care, or laying to rest a loved one. We must address the supply and demand imbalance in housing. We must focus on doing everything we can to build more housing and to be smart about it, to respect the character and the general plan of the city. But building more housing is the only proven way of substantially improving housing availability. And so I would ask that we seek to focus on those types of strategies that have demonstrated to be more effective. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie Rotoli.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, PG neighbors. My name is Carrie Rotoli. I am a homeowner here in Pacific Grove. And I just want to share our perspective because we haven't lived in PG that long. We moved here a few years ago after being away for 28 years. So 28 years ago, we lived here for almost a year and almost got jobs here, but then the work was in the Bay Area, so that we ended up moving. And finally, after 28 years, have been able to relocate in a town that has always felt like home. And on our block, and we're within walking distance of downtown PG, from our block, there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 homes that are either not occupied at all or, you know, they're part-time. And I don't begrudge anyone for having that luxury. I think it's great, you know, they've earned it. I'm not here to pass judgment on anyone, but we moved into a neighborhood thinking that it was a neighborhood. And when we first moved in, there were neighbors that welcomed us. They were quite old and have moved away, and then their kids took over their home. That's probably a very familiar story, right? The older couple was really sweet, and we really enjoyed having neighbors like that we could talk to and say hello, and they saw our comings and goings and we saw theirs, and we looked out for each other. And then when they moved away, the house was empty for quite a while. They took their time fixing it up, and it is technically a short-term rental. I think they have like people can stay there for a month or something. So they come and they go. They're nice enough people, but we don't know them. And the house right next to us is completely vacant and a shambles. So if there's some way that people that are hanging on to these homes for whatever their varying reasons are can help contribute to the city in a more meaningful way and even encourage long-term rentals. I would love to see neighbors that live here longer than a month, and I'm tired of looking at an empty house next to us. So I just wanted to share that perspective. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Darren Tinsley.
Welcome.
Thank you. Darren Tinsley, I am a real estate broker, and I would like to weigh in on pro for the vacant home tax. All these cities are doing it for different reasons. I know Oakland did it for crime. San Francisco, I believe, is doing it for rent control. What I see in PG is I see a lot of homes that have been owned for a very long time that have a very low tax basis. And it kind of evens the playing field if those owners that have an incredibly low tax basis to the point that they can leave an asset vacant for months and months and months should have to pay some small portion towards the running of the city. I think the Prop 19 analogy is not very accurate. I cannot see any other city, any other county that is going to allow the reciprocal so that tax bases can go back and forth. It's only that's going to be inter-county if it happens at all. So I am I'm weighing in on pro a vacancy tax. Thank you.
Thank you.
Christy Thomas.
Welcome.
Hi, with pickleball and the walk group, am in contact with people that have second homes, and not everybody's it's not a cookie cutter situation, as you know. Couple of the people, they have no plan to move here permanently. They come when they want to. And someone else, they inherited a house, and so they have generations that come and visit. So I have no idea how you would monitor this. I mean, how could a city employee, or how in America could you go and say, okay, how long have you been in this house? I mean, I just don't see how you would monitor it, or what watchdog situation you'd have, to manage this. So that's all I want to say. I mean, I really appreciate the thinking that, oh, if you got this extra money, it would be going to affordable housing, this and that. I don't even know how you would manage that, because until you start partnering with low income housing and, getting inclusionary housing and put low income in high end projects, I just think this is the wrong way to go about it. Thank you.
Thank you.
No other hands, Mayor.
Right, on to council discussion on this item. Let's hold on. I guess I'm going to jump in first, since they seem to be reluctant to speak up. Thank you, Council Member McAdams, for bringing this forward. Considering that this would take a vote, next election being nearly, over 2 years from now. And I agree with the comments that we have a lot to learn on this particular topic, not only the cities like Santa Cruz that will be voting on this, but the cities that have implemented this. My understanding is that Oakland, they get kicked off January 1st of next year. And so I agree with, we need to keep an eye on it to learn what it's all about. It sounds pretty complicated. And but the second part of directing staff to actively monitor this and come back to us, I think it's premature. So that's where I stand. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilmember McAdams. I love the creativity and the thought, and that you've brought this forward for the discussion. It's fascinating to think about and read about and do research on in preparation for tonight. And it was on the last 2 weeks ago. But I agree. I think that there's no rush to be the first to do it. There is a lot of questions of how do you enforce it? How do you define it? And as soon as you do, there'll be folks exploiting the loopholes and around it, right? So it's the numbers look good on paper, but I think the execution will be quite difficult. And so watching some folks go ahead and assessing whether it would apply to us makes a lot of sense to me. And I would like to, rather than, I don't have the answer, but rather than punish people for having a vacant home, somehow turn it around positively and encourage them to use the home differently, maybe to rent it. I don't know how to do that, but I'm a much bigger fan of encouraging use through positive reinforcement rather than kind of a negative tax enforcement. So again, I don't have the how to do that, but I would always lean in that direction. And I think the state's working hard to come up with options and solutions and ideas around this. So thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council Member McAdams, for bringing this forward. Recently I've traveled the streets quite a lot, and I did come across some second homes, and the people that occupied those second homes were there for, I know exactly where the streets were. They were there on a family gathering on Labor Day weekend. And now would they use them always on every weekend? That I did not know, but I did hit some homes that they said I can't, well, I can't vote for you because I don't live here. I only stay here 4 months out of the year. Then I hit another home. I'm just giving you some examples that they stay here away from the Phoenix, Arizona heat of 115 degrees, and they bought this home here. To me, this is a tax on a tax. And I believe everybody that owns a home pays their property taxes, and they shouldn't be taxed on a tax. They're paying their property taxes. And someone did mention, even if they're only here for a couple of months out of the year or 3 months out of the year, during the time they're not here, they're still paying their property taxes. And someone mentioned about, paying for schools, public service, fire department, police department. So I'm against the tax on this special tax on a tax, property tax.
Councilmember Peduri.
Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Councilmember McAdams, for bringing this. I think the first thing that struck me when I read the agenda item is there are 1349 vacant homes. That's a lot. And then I realized that we also passed a measure called Measure M, which was not too long ago. And I think we're seeing the consequences of Measure M here. We've limited folks from renting their homes out, and now we have empty homes. I think it's a direct correlation right there. Measure M probably is costing, in my estimate, about $0.5 million to $1 million in annual revenue for the city. So this is, to me, I don't think we need to further tax these homeowners. We've not given them enough options to actually rent the property out. And so we don't need to enforce something else to overcome what we have done in the past. The other thing that I view is this is also, in some ways, this is an enforcement issue too. How do you actually track and measure a home is empty or not? So it's going to cause a burden on not only the city staff, but also the property owner. Most likely, all of us will have to report in some way or the other, stating that I'm the owner of the home. I'm actually living in that home. So it's going to cause an additional burden on our entire, I would say, citizens over here. So to me, this is while the intent is there, I think we need to do something more positive, like Councilmember Tomlinson mentioned, something positive to actually incentivize these homes and outside of a long-term kind of rental plan. I don't see what the options are right now. So thank you.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, I appreciate the discussion. I do. As regards the tangent on Measure M, actually what's happened here is that most of the homes, or a great number of homes, nearly 75 were sold as a result. So people came into the market trying to cash in our neighborhoods, bought second homes to rent them out as short-term rentals. And when Measure M was adopted, even though they promised to be here forever, they quickly got out of town. So it was a question of profiteering. And then that quickly went away when Measure M was adopted. The 1349 number is a total, if you break it down, there are units for rent, et cetera, units for sale. But, the thing that I'm really kind of focused on is this, we're implying that we're going to increase affordable housing, I suppose, by directing all tax proceeds to go towards an affordable housing program. To do that, you need to pass a special tax, and that means you need to get a 2/3 vote. And getting a 2/3 vote in Pacific Grove is no easy task. The Berkeley measure is for a general tax, so it would just go into the general fund. So it's we had a heck of a time even getting a 2/3 vote to fund the library, several times. So I'm a little worried about that. That if we do say this is the intended use of the monies, that we would have to get a 66% voter approval, and that's a very high bar. So I don't think we'd actually even get it. One thing, you know, tying it to SDRs, I guess, is that one of the carve outs, there are several, if you read the initiative, and by the way, the Santa Cruz measure was put on via Citizens Initiative, put on the ballot via Citizens Initiative. There are a lot of different carve outs. One of them is short-term rentals. So you won't be taxing vacant properties that are being used as short-term rentals. Well, that being the case, since there's this carve out, this exception for not having to pay the empty home tax, that would encourage short-term rentals. People say, well, you know, I wasn't interested in doing an STR before, but now I am because I can avoid the empty home tax. There's a lot of unintended consequences that can kind of roll out of this, and enforcement is an issue. And I think we have a hard time enforcing what we've got currently on the books. So adding in, you know, 8,000 dwelling units to have to monitor, that's no mean feat either. So that's going to be a very, very difficult task. I am interested in following what happens in Berkeley, what happens in Santa Cruz, but again, 2/3 of the voters would have to approve it if we're going to adopt it as a special tax. So that's my thoughts for now. And as the mayor points out, you know, this would have to go onto the ballot 2 years from now. So a discussion for later, perhaps.
Councilmember Smith.
I'm just gonna kind of piggyback off of my colleagues. I think they made a lot of good points in relation to not pursuing this at this time. And so I'll just leave it there. I agree with those points. Thank you.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you. And thank you for the dialogue. Obviously, if the revenues were to go to also fund capital improvement projects as well as housing projects, then it wouldn't need the 3/4 vote. But it will be interesting to see, you know, Santa Cruz, Napa. I actually liked, and Berkeley, I mean, they are sort of smaller cities in a sense, and they don't have, except for Napa, I mean, they don't have as many empty homes as we do. So it'll be interesting to see what happens. And again, you know, I think when we are thinking about the future, do we want to get to that 40% empty homes like Carmel? You know, I mean, I'm seeing that my friends are moving out. I am seeing families that aren't able to stay here. And so I don't know if that is the direction that our community wants to go in. And it's just something that, you know, I think will be neat to wait and see. And I hope that, you know, when we get to 30% empty homes, which can be sooner than later, you know, I just don't want to see it go to the point of no return. And obviously what we're finding is to have affordable housing projects or to fund a down payment program or to help renters takes money that we don't have. And so where are we going to get that money from? And so we can keep using that as a crutch or perhaps, you know, try to be a little innovative and figure out where to get those revenues. So thank you so much for this conversation.
And Mr. Harvey, I'm not hearing any direction to staff at this time, but we'll all be looking at it in the future, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Okay, so let's take a short recess. I suggest we resume at 8:35, and we'll be hearing 11D. That's the appeal of was it 1166 Presidio. All right, short recess. Hello, we're reconvening and welcome back. We're now at item 11D, appeal of our architectural permit and tree permit with development at 1166 Presidio Boulevard. Mr. Sidor, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor Peak, and good evening, Mayor and council members. Item 11D is an appeal of an architectural permit and tree permit with development unanimously approved by both the Architectural Review Board and Planning Commission. Next slide. Project site is located at 1166 Presidio Boulevard in the Pacific Grove Del Monte Park residential neighborhood. And the 4,800 square foot interior lot is located near the intersection of Presidio Boulevard and Benito Avenue and is currently developed with an 1,120 square foot one-story residence with a non-habitable lower level that does not have interior circulation with the upper level residence. The surrounding neighborhood is comprised of a mix of 1 to 3-story single-family residences. The applicant proposes to construct a 1,986 square foot 3-story residence with a 246 square foot detached garage. Project also includes demolition of a small shed near the front property line and removal of 1 9-inch oak and 2 non-native and non-protected trees. As proposed, the new structures would conform to applicable development standards for the zoning district and architectural guidelines. The project is also categorically exempt from SEQA per section 15302, replacement or reconstruction of existing structures and facilities. Next slide. The Architectural Review Board considered the project on August 9th and voted unanimously to approve the project as proposed with only a slight modification to the garage door design. The appellant submitted a timely appeal of the ARB's decision to approve the project, contending that the proposed upper level would block the appellant's ocean view. The Planning Commission considered the project on September 8th and voted unanimously to approve the project and directed the applicant to submit a corrected application form and to remove the proposed upper deck. The agenda packet provided to the City Council this evening includes both the corrected application form and the plan set incorporates the design changes as directed by both the Architectural Review Board and the Planning Commission. Next slide. The appellant then submitted a timely appeal of the Planning Commission's decision to approve the project, contending that the project would result in additional tree removal and that there are errors in the site plan. The appellant did not submit evidence to support the contention of additional tree removal, and the revised site plan submitted by the applicant more clearly shows the proposed separation between the structures. Even though the tree removal necessary to implement the project was not in question, the applicant also submitted a revised arborist report to correct several minor or non-substantive errors in the previous report. And staff has recommended a new condition to require the installation and maintenance of tree protection measures during construction. During review of this project, planning staff have conducted multiple site visits, including the appellant's property, to evaluate the potential impacts. The appellant has not provided any evidence or information that would lead staff to change the determinations, conclusions, and/or recommendation. Therefore, staff recommends the City Council deny the appeal, find the project categorically exempt per SEQA guidelines section 15302, and approve the architectural permit and tree permit with development subject to the findings and conditions of approval. Next slide. And this concludes staff's presentation, and I'm available for questions as well as the applicant.
Thank you. Before we go forward, any council member needs to recuse themselves? Yeah, Mayor Pro Tem Emilio. Mr. Pierre, could you
Well,
hold on?
I don't know. Are you within 500 feet of this property? Okay, well then, you're up here, fine, yeah.
Okay. Any ex parte communication on from council on this item? All right, seeing none. All right, so we'll continue on. We'll have a appellant's presentation with a 10-minute total, followed by the applicant's presentation, also 10 minutes. Then we'll do public comment, 3 minutes apiece. Then applicant rebuttal, 5 minutes, and appellant rebuttal, 5 minutes. And then that concludes the hearing part, and then we'll have council discussion. Okay. All right, so on to the appellant's presentation. Are the appellants present?
No longer online, but I do see 2 hands raised, and so that might be the appellant under another name or telephone number. No, I'll check. Angela Tyler, is this Angela Tyler or Cynthia Jimenez? Telephone number 1530107.
What is the appellant's name? I'm sorry, I missed that.
Catherine.
Appellant is Catherine Jimenez.
I'm sorry, what?
Hello?
This
Yes,
is
this is
Catherine
Catherine
Jimenez.
Jimenez. Yes, it is. Hello? Do you hear me?
Hey, you may start your presentation now. You have 10 minutes.
Well, I already presented it with the appeal. Do I have to go through it? Hello? Can you hear me?
It's up to you, Ms. Jimenez. We're
Okay,
here
well-
at council.
Okay, so excuse me, I'm not sure on the procedures, but, okay, hello, my name is Catherine Jimenez, and good evening. Had all my paperwork ready, but I thought that you guys would be reviewing it. So my name is Catherine Jimenez, and I'm one of the appellant. My father was in the military, and he served in World War II, the Korean War, and the Guadalcanal. In 1968, he retired here in PG, and my parents bought our family home in 1969. We have no issues with our neighbors. In fact, some of them have told us that it's unfortunate that our ocean view is going to be blocked. We have been misled by the owners, and that is also unfortunate because they will be our neighbors, and we plan to retire in PG. The ISA certified arborist report contained major errors, not minor, including the site plan. Inconclusive, those were misleading reports given to the Architectural Review Board and the Planning Commission members. If the building permit goes through as is without another different certified arborist report, and if the oak trees are not preserved throughout the process of the demolition of the existing house and the construction of a new home, then someone will be responsible for the outcome because the revised ISA certified arborist report were not minor errors, but contained major errors. It is important to visually see the poles and the net in place at the job site instead of relying on a sheet projection. Hello?
Yes.
Hello?
Continue.
Oh, okay. Well, okay, so I was on the visual meeting, and I somehow got disconnected, and I've been trying to go back on it, and I could not, so I'm doing on the phone. And the presentation that I had for the appellant was that
Hello.
hello, I'm here. So we're appealing the decision because we felt misled and intimidated. We're not opposing the development of the new home. we are asking, and they already did, they correct the inadequate site plan and the revised, but the revised ISA certified report will need to be another arborist report, a certified ISA report. The homeowner told us that they will move the top story back 10 feet because they had to preserve the oak trees number 47, but then again, they corrected it. And it goes on, the house, because oak trees number 47s were attached to it. So we asked the city to correct it, and they corrected, et cetera. But, you know, we've been doing landscaping construction for 35 years, and we deal with trees that are close to the foundations of homes and driveways and sidewalks. We acknowledge that during the process of the demolition of the existing home and the construction of the new home and the safety for anybody on that job site, along with in the future, that the oak trees on number 47 will not be preserved because it is already decreasing in its health. It's not healthy. It is not a healthy tree. We also asked that so he did clarify the Quadra Guidelines Class 203, but except it says that when they, if you look at the codes and read it carefully and go word for word by it, it says that you can, when you demolition the structure, but it has to be at the same appearance as well as the same capacity. So the capacity of it being built is not the same capacity. But anyway, so there was no reason why they cannot move the top floor back 10 feet towards the north. Hello?
Yes, go ahead.
Hello? Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, now, the applicant's presentation, 10 minutes. Welcome.
All right, good evening, Mayor and council members and staff. First of all, thank you. Thank you for your service to the city. I Googled the compensation while I was sitting there and saw that it was not much. And so I'm sure in addition to what you do for on the committee here that the public can see, there's a lot of time that you probably put in behind the scenes, responding to emails and such. And so it's basically a voluntary basic. So thank you for your service to the public. And on top of that, you had to field a lot of barbs from a lot of angry citizens tonight. So it's must be an uncomfortable position, yet you continue to serve. So thank you. So my name is Matt Myers, and this is my wife, Mimi, and our 4 kids back there, ages 4 through 10. So we currently live in Monterey. The kids attend Monterey schools. I've been wanting to live in Pacific Grove for a very long time. It's been a dream. This is where we want to have our forever home. We eagerly want our kids to get in the schools here. So we selected this property at 1166 Presidio Boulevard because it's a great neighborhood. It's heavily treed. There's some nice slopes around, really great neighbors. We've talked to all of them, and we're very excited to get in as soon as possible. Unfortunately, this house, unfortunately, the house it's not inhabitable. It is one of the 1,300 and however many empty homes because it's dilapidated. It's not suitable. It is size-wise or quality for my family. So, having gone over with multiple contractors on various ideas on how to make this livable for our family in an affordable way, and a demolition and rebuild is the only way to do it. The walls are very thin. It's had nothing done to it since it was first built in the 50s. It has some charm to it, but it's just a carpenter's shack. So we're eager to move forward on this project. As interesting the fire engine discussion about act now while we can get the financing in. I mean, I'm not able to lock in the rate for my construction loan until I have an approved plan from the city. So as these appeals, come at every level, I'm the beads of sweat are rolling down my face as the interest rates are going up again and again. So that's the situation I'm in. We're eager to move forward and would very much appreciate your support. And I will cede any remaining time to my wife and then also my architect, Stephen Krebs, if there's any questions about the plan and what we've done. I'll go ahead and turn it over to my wife, Mimi. Thank you for your time this evening.
I'm Mimi. I came to PG for the first time last September to do some house hunting with Matt, and we looked at houses all over the place and we put offers in. Stuff fell through. Finally, this place came through, and we were really excited about it. It is just on the edge of what we can afford and what will fit our family. It's a very narrow edge. I don't have a job, except what you see back there. It's pretty full-time. I can't be relied on for anything else. So we just have Matt's income. Matt has dreamed of living in Pacific Grove, and as soon as I came here, I could see why. And I fully support him, and I really want to live here with our family. We, like you said, we love the neighborhood. We went around and talked to all the neighbors when we first bought the property before we even had plans. I remember speaking to the Jimenez's. I think everybody was kind of excited we were moving in because nothing has really been done to that property for a very long time. The Jimenez's did say that they really didn't want their view affected. So when we met with the architect and everybody, we tried to move the house as far back on the lot as possible. But you see, we do have 4 children, and there's the 2 of us. I mean, the current plan, all the bedrooms are on the top floor, and everybody doesn't have their own bedroom. I share a bedroom with my husband, 2 girls, 2 boys, and that's all there is. So there's not really any room to make it smaller. But we did move everything as far back as possible. And I know it does affect their view, but we really like the way the property is treated, and we did our best to choose a design that didn't affect any of the trees. And even the one that is slated for removal, it's only slated for removal because perhaps the garage will affect it, and it's a very small tree under the canopy. But I mean, if I had my druthers, that wouldn't be removed either. So we really like Pacific Grove because it has this, heritage, these trees, and, we fully support protecting them. We're not looking to let any of them down. I built a tree house in my last place, and this place, I feel like it already is a tree house, and it suits me very well. And anyway, we're just really excited to live here, and thank you for everything you do.
Now, you still have time. Are you the architect, sir?
I'm Steve Krebs. I'm the designer for the project. And just to give you a little bit more input than what the planning department would give you on the site, I started working on this project about a year ago. The lot is a 40-foot by 120-foot lot. There's 4-foot setbacks on the sides, 20-foot on the front and rear. So the houses on the street there on Presidio are going to be 8 to 10 feet on the sides of the property, apart from each other, and on the rear of the property, they're 40 feet. So as a designer, you try to emphasize the open spaces rather than the side spaces, and that's true with all the houses on the street there. I was given the design goal to design a 1,600 square foot, 3-bedroom, 2-and-a-bath house with room for expansion in the future, which will be done in the lower floor in a detached garage. And there's a lot of mature oak trees that have been neglected over the years. And we worked with Frank Ono, our arborist, to try to come up with a plan that we can bring them back to life. And the tree that the appellant's talking about, I think we can take the foundation, which is falling apart as it is right now, and save the tree that they think that can be removed. So that's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll go out to public comment. Do we have any members of the public that wishing to speak?
We do have a couple of hands raised online. Ethan Hare.
Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Ethan Hare with Hare Construction, born and raised on the peninsula, builder of many things, both private residences, commercial properties, and public as otherwise. Really appreciate everyone's time and consideration on this and the care that's being given to the improvement to the fabric of the city of Pacific Grove. I feel that this is just a colossal, unfortunate waste of both public and private time and resources. Simply grasping at straws by pointing to trees that also die, as and every one of us will. This is a beautiful opportunity to improve the city and provide space for a kind and incredible family looking to move into this community. What better opportunity does this council and city have but to encourage and create opportunities for families to move into our space, like the themes that have been on other discussions this evening. The one comment I would offer to staff's report or clarification, just in my opinion, it's in their conclusion, they offered that the approval or denial of this project has no fiscal impact. And I would clarify that, in my opinion, is incorrect based on the amount of fees that the city collects, both from a planning and building permit process, the amount of sales tax that are generated from both employing local and otherwise people, the activity that is brought to the town from that, as well as the improvement into the base property tax. So I see this as a great, wonderful opportunity to improve Pacific Grove in a number of aspects, creating the vibrancy and community that we all look for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yes. Inga Lawrence and Dwemer.
Welcome.
Thank you. My question is just kind of, is this going to be the new normal? Because this is the second appeal that's come to city council that all of a sudden after the appeal ended up with corrected plans or a revised city arborist report or a corrected application form. I'm just kind of wondering if maybe a lot of this could be stopped at when the forms are filled out and when the plans are actually filed for the first time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
No further hands.
All right, back to the applicant rebuttal. You have some time. The applicant, would you like to speak further? If not, it's your choice. All right.
Hello?
Craig Riddell with Hair
Hello?
Construction, technically
Oh,
the applicant.
just
because our
Hello?
firm's working.
okay. I'm sorry. Could you hold off, Craig, just a second?
Ms. Jimenez, in just a moment.
Yeah.
Ms.
Okay,
Jimenez, hold on just a moment and you'll have your time for rebuttal.
thank you.
Okay, let's start again, please. The 5 minutes.
I just wanted to say that, you've heard it all before. We went through AIB, got a unanimous decision. That's not easy to do. We went through planning commission, got a unanimous decision. And I want to say something about the applicant too. The applicant withdrew the roof. It became part of the direction of the planning commission, but they removed the roof on their own at their desire, just to kind of make it a little easier. And one of the issues the appellant had was a privacy issue. So we have tried to work with this, and I think Joe from the city went up to take a look at the view sets, and we are affecting a portion of the view, but they still have a very nice view left over. Thank you very much. I didn't know if you want to say.
Can I talk? Hello? Hello?
Do we mute the
Hello?
appellant for a few minutes?
And I guess I forgot to mention my interaction with the neighbors that are opposing, that are appealing. I had, as soon as the polls went up, I took my kids and we went around to all the houses to see how everybody felt about it. Most people were home. The Jimenez's next door don't live there full time. I think they live in Sacramento. She mentioned it was her father and mother's home, and they come there occasionally on the weekend. But they do have plans to retire there. So I left a note at her house, and when I was away the next weekend, she happened to be there and she called me, and then we set up a meeting to meet with them and look at the view from their house and, you know, to discuss what could be done. Anyway, that's how it went. We did make an effort to communicate, but the sticking point were the trees, and nobody's ever said it's okay to remove the trees. So we didn't really see a way forward except the one we've already proposed, which we did take back the roof, like Craig mentioned, the rooftop. We had a porch on the second, the third floor had a roof porch on the second floor roof that we removed for their privacy issues, but we really do consider their opinion, and we did try to talk to them. And at some point, it just became clear that there wasn't any way forward that they proposed that was viable, and nobody else in any direction we looked had anything else to say than go ahead with the plan that you already have. So anyway, we're here, we're ready to listen. If anybody has a solution that would make this peaceable, we are ready to accept it, or you know, try to integrate it. We just haven't heard anything so far. So I forgot to mention that interaction. My last, thank you.
Ms. Jimenez, the appellant, is she still on the line?
Ms. Jimenez? Catherine Jimenez?
Hello?
Hi, we can
Okay.
hear you now.
Okay, hi. Hello. Okay, so, can you hear me? Hello?
Yes.
Okay, okay.
Yes. go
Okay,
ahead.
well, so I'm gonna, correction. The planning commission, members are the ones that requested to omit the top of the porch, and to revise their application because the application was not, correctly written. It had to be, revised. So that's a correction there. And again, we're not opposing the project, and we're really, you know, pleased that they're gonna move in and they'll have a family, et cetera, et cetera. We're not opposing that. It's just that it's really sad on how it went. And I'm gonna repeat myself, the ISO certified Arborist report contained major errors and not minor. And that's even including the site plan. And inclusive, those were misleading reports given to the Agriculture Review Board and the Planning Commission members. So again, if the building permit goes through as is without a new certified arborist report, and the oak trees are not preserved throughout the process of the demolition of the existing house and the construction of the new home, then someone will have to be responsible for that outcome, because a revised ISO certified arborist report were not minor errors. They were major errors. And it's important to visually see the poles in place instead of relying on a sheet project. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, that closes the hearing. We're now on to council dialogue. Councilmember Tomlinson.
Don't be too excited. Thank you for the presentation, and thank you to the family for being here. I will say that your story really resonates with me. So I moved here 2012. So 10 years ago. For 2 years, I lived in Monterey. I was a stalker of PG. I came over here all the time, wanted to live here. And we kind of scraped every penny together to buy a house, it was uninhabitable. It had raccoons in it who count, but they were not paying taxes. And so we tore the house down and built a new house, and it was not an easy process. So anyway, that's my personal story, but I just want to commend you for sticking with the process. It can be intimidating. It can be nerve-wracking. I'm sure you're worrying about finances, but I want to welcome you to the city. I'm really glad that you were able to go through the process. It's good that we have it, the Planning Commission, the ARB, the council, the appeals, the public to be able to participate. This is very good that all of this process can happen, and you've run the course, and hopefully tonight the appeal will be denied. I know I will be supporting a denying of the appeal. I think you've been very accommodating, and I look forward to seeing your project be able to go through. So thank you for being here.
Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. And I would just like to thank the Myers family for being here. And Mrs. Meyer, you have the most important job. You are CEO of your household. I echo what Councilmember Tomlinson says, and I'm happy to support this, and I'm happy to make a motion when ready.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. I attended the Planning Commission meeting, and there was a great deal of compromise on the part of the homeowner. And it was perfectly illustrated again tonight at the dais, at the lectern. So there is a lot of stress. 20 years ago, I was involved in a remodel, and so I can only imagine what you're dealing with now. And I'm eager to approve this. And I would also say you're in good hands with Krebs and Riddell. So I hope we can approve.
Councilmember Smith.
I would just echo some of my colleagues' comments up here. Good luck with the project. It seems like the city has done all its due diligence and you went through all the different avenues and it's a lot of work and it's hard to do. And you got, I think, unanimous votes all the way through. So you must be doing something right. So I'm happy to deny the appeal tonight. And I'll make a motion now to that effect.
Second that.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
I agree with that motion. However, I just want to add that we could be having 4 more students at Pacific Grove Unified School District.
All right. And we have a vote, please.
And thank you, Mayor. Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio,
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Councilmember Paduri,
Aye.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Right. Moving on to the next item. It's 11E, Safe Parking Program Reservations. I don't see Ms. Francis, Mr. Harvey.
He's online.
She's online, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for being
Welcome.
here.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, I have a couple of recommendations as it relates to our safe parking program. In 2015, a pilot program was approved by City Council to establish a safe parking program, what was referred to as a safe sleeping program. The pilot program was successful with 1 site permit approved. And so in May 2016, City Council codified the program. Earlier this year, it was staff was directed to take a look at the code, which had a couple errors in it. One of them being that it still referred to the program as a pilot program, although it was approved in 2016 to be permanently codified. The program has since seen a lot of success still, and dozens of unhoused individuals in our community have benefited through the One Starfish program and Orphans Productions. My recommendation tonight is to update and revise the existing municipal code by removing the word pilot, renaming it from the Safe Sleeping Program to the Safe Parking Program, which is more appropriate and in line with other California cities, as well as removing the Chief of Police as the administrator of the program, as it makes more sense to have it administered by Housing and Community Development. And lastly, I suggest continuing on with this great program for our community. That concludes my presentation.
Do we have any public comment on this item, safe parking?
No public comment online.
Council discussion, Councilman,
I'm sorry, I had a hand raised. Lisa Chiani.
welcome.
Oh.
Do we have anybody?
Hi, this is Lisa Chiani. Did you
Welcome.
call on me? I got an
Yes.
unmute button, so I guess so. Okay, I just wanted to say I fully support this. And I'm so pleased that we have this program. And this sounds like very good corrections to the ordinance. Thank you.
No further hands, Mayor.
Councilmember Coletti.
Thank you, Your Honor. I certainly support this, and Jocelyn came back like she said she would. So thank you. The only thing I would add or correct is that in the title of the ordinance, it says adding chapter. I think that should be amending chapter. And then with that, I would request the city attorney read the ordinance title.
This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Pacific Grove, amending chapter, well, it says adding chapter, but assuming you're going to change that to amending chapter 18.36050 of the Pacific Grove Municipal Code regarding the safe parking program.
Councilmember Tomlinson.
I'll make a motion to approve the ordinance
Well, let me,
and waive the further reading of it.
there you go.
I was gonna say it.
Okay. I want,
And you're doing your first reading tonight.
I'm going to add, this is another occasion that comes to mind. We talked about at a recent meeting about homelessness, the homeless in Pacific Grove. And I would really welcome if the police department, I think they're the right folks, would come back to council and tell us what kind of help in terms of support services our homeless need, because we don't expect homeless to stay homeless. We would like, at least I think all of us would like to have them find permanent housing. And at this point, we just don't know what our homeless need. So I hope keep that in mind. Mr. Harvey, that might be something to talk about in the future.
Sure.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion? All right, may we have a vote, please?
Yes, can I get the person who seconded? I missed that. It was, okay, I thought so. Thank you. Councilmember Tomlinson? Councilmember Baduri?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
McAdams?
Aye.
Coletti?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio?
Aye.
Mayor Peak?
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
Right, on to 11F, ordinance amending the unique code for chapter 14.04 marine refuge.
Yeah, I'll present on this one. At its August 17th, 2022 meeting, the city council directed the city attorney to draft a proposed ordinance amendment to implement road work restrictions during the harbor seal pupping season. After consideration of the council's direction, our office has drafted an ordinance to amend chapter 14.04 and to add sections 1404.035 and 1404.090 to provide for suspension of road work on Ocean View Boulevard between Eardley and Carmel Avenues during the harbor seal pupping season, unless it is coordinated in advance with NOAA. The proposed amendments are included in the staff report. And I'll just briefly describe what those are. There's section 035, 1404.035 is the definition section that defines the harbor seal pupping season as from February to May. It defines the term emergency as a sudden unexpected occurrence demanding immediate action. And it also defines the term road work. And then the section 1404.090, and I'm just going to read that, it's not too long. It says during the harbor seal pupping season, non-emergency roadwork projects within the Ocean View Boulevard right-of-way between Eardley and Carmel Avenues shall be suspended unless such work is coordinated in advance with the local NOAA offices. Emergency road work during the harbor seal pupping season shall be reported to NOAA as soon as practical. Now, the ordinance itself contains what are referred to as recitals. Those are whereas clauses. And there was an errata that was prepared. That errata, it was based upon input from staff with regards to certain information. The eighth recital, which is the whereas clause that begins during the 2022 harbor seal pupping season. And it goes on to describe various events and the timing on when those occurred. And as I mentioned, there was, these are recitals. They are not incorporated into the city's code. And there was also a modification on the 10th recital, and this is all shown in your errata. So the recommended action would be to request a reading of the ordinance by title and then a motion to approve the recommended action, including waiving further reading. And I'm prepared to answer questions.
Do we have any public comment? Welcome, please come forward. You have. Thank you.
My name is Andre Brisson. I'm a recent PG resident. I'm also a biologist. I'm really just getting up to speed with local issues. I'd like to be more involved. So this, to me, I've been hearing all kinds of complex and complicated issues. This seems really clear to me. Basically, if we want, and I did send a letter to all of you, if we want our seals, right, to survive and we want this population to remain there, it just seems very clear to me that we don't want to disturb them during reproduction. So I hope that you'll take that into consideration. They're very sensitive to noise. And to me, they are like our monarch sanctuary. It's something we really, I think, a point of pride in our city. I know a lot of people visit it, and I feel strongly about it. I think it's a very clear decision, so I thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
We have some online callers, Mayor. Lisa Ciani?
I'm sorry, how many callers?
3.
Okay.
Thank
4.
you. Okay, this is Lisa Ciani. I strongly support this ordinance. There were tragic results for this year's seal colony pupping as a result of city staff's lack of understanding of the city's local coastal program and the Marine Mammal Protection Act. Knowledgeable members of the community were disregarded. It's essential to avoid additional potentially devastating impacts to PG's harbor seal colony in the future, brought about by ignorance of required protections. Late this afternoon, as a correction to whereas clause number 8 in the ordinance, I sent the 2 coastal development permit exemptions that the former community development director issued on December 7th, 2021 for the CalAm and Public Works roadwork projects on Ocean View Boulevard. The exemptions were unfounded, reflecting the former director's lack of understanding of environmentally sensitive habitat areas and harbor seal protections in PG's LCP policies. And those exemptions were not noticed to this resident on the notification list, being myself, until I requested copies after learning of the exemptions after the March council meeting with work underway. Whereas clause number 8 states that there was one CDP exemption and that it was issued during pupping season. The agenda report is correct. Perhaps it would be a simple matter to correct whereas number 8 in the interests of an accurate public record. Furthermore, there's a revision of whereas clause number 8 submitted in today's errata that removes the accurate description that NOAA's resource protection coordinator contacted the city about the violation of the Marine Mammal Protection Act before the city stopped CalAm street work and delayed the city's own street work until after public pupping season was over. The revision in the errata states erroneously that the NOAA official contacted the city after the street work was stopped. Again, the agenda report is correct, but not the whereas. clause. In any case, since no second reading is required for this ordinance and seal pupping season is rapidly approaching, I hope you will approve the ordinance without delay. The wording of the ordinance itself appears excellent. Thank you, and thank you to Councilmember Coletti for initiating the ordinance.
Thank you.
Mayor, we have 7 more callers, just FYI. Inga Lawrence.
Just apologies to all our callers. There's 7 now. There's likely to be more than 7. We're running out of time and real estate to complete a very full agenda. So I'm going to ask future callers to amend their comments to 2 minutes, please. Ms. Kendall, if you'd set the clock to 2 minutes.
Okay. Inga Lawrence and Dreimer.
Thank you. I don't mind the revised timing. I very much want this ordinance passed. I do have a problem with the whereas that was added in the errata for the narrative, because I will call that the great travesty of transparency, because that is absolutely incorrect, and I wish that staff had not inserted it. We all know what happened, and we all need to move forward and pass the ordinance. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Lori McDonald.
Welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you, City Council and Mayor. I also would like to speak in support of the measure, just keeping it brief. Unfortunately, past incidents have demonstrated that a more clearly defined ordinance is required. And I think this does a good job of clearing up any potential lack of clarity that may lead to any future problems, and make sure that we are not only upholding the law of our own ordinance and of the marine mammal protection, but also protecting a very important asset for our city. As mentioned before, a lot of people do plan their regular vacations around this. And so it does actually bring people and income to our city. And it is, as somebody else mentioned, I think a great point of pride. And so I just really hope everyone will be on board with voting this in so that we can move forward and ensure a wonderful pupping season this year. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Tom Aikman.
Welcome.
Well, actually, it's going to be Kim speaking tonight. So first off, I want to thank Luke Coletti for bringing this forward. And I also want to thank the city attorney for writing this up, because it is well done. So thank you for that. I do think that this will be helpful to the staff. Obviously, we need this along with our seal ordinance already in place. And of course, the federal law. We don't want to see a repeat of what happened this last pupping season. And as you know, you received a letter from the NOAA officials endorsing this ordinance before you tonight. So I just want to say that I support this wholeheartedly, and I hope that you do too. And I want to encourage all of you. I invite each one of you, and also whoever the new council people coming on and the staff, to come down and enjoy our harbor seals during the pupping season. I would encourage all of you to come and learn more about our harbor seals, because we do go out and speak to the kids in the museum, the young naturalists. We have grad students that are doing projects with our harbor seals. They are worldwide known. And so I thank you ahead for this ordinance and the further protections for our harbor seals. Thank you.
Thank you.
Kathy Nolan.
Welcome.
Hello, I'm a volunteer for the Monterey Bay National Marine Sanctuary, and I've seen noise disturbances along the coast from Elkhorn Slough all the way down to Point Lobos. And what I saw at Pacific Grove was very sad, and anything to help reduce this disturbance to the seals of Pacific Grove, I support. So therefore, I support this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Carrie Rotoli.
Welcome.
Hi, thank you, Mayor and City Council. I'll keep this brief. I just want to echo comments from previous presenters this evening in support of this ordinance. Hopefully we can protect our harbor seals. They are a treasure, as I'm sure you're aware. And yeah, I just fully support it and wanted to thank you for all the time and effort, Councilmember Coletti and everyone for moving this forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
No other hands are raised.
All right, we'll close public comment. Council discussion on the item. Wow. Councilmember Tomlinson.
I'm very supportive and I'd go with the next step of asking you to read the ordinance.
I'll take that as a request to read the title. That's an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Pacific Grove, amending Chapter 14.04 of the Pacific Grove Municipal Code, establishing roadwork restrictions during the harbor seal puppy season. And then the next order of business would just be to say there would be a motion to approve the recommended action.
I move to approve the recommended action.
Second. Yes.
I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay. Councilmember Tomlinson. Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
Aye.
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Councilmembers Coletti,
Aye.
McAdams.
Aye.
Paduri
Aye.
and Smith.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
On to item 11G. Purchasing
Did you want me to
system.
present on that one, or are you?
Absolutely. You're up.
Okay, so this is item 11G. It's a proposed ordinance making amendments to the code with regard to the authority of the mayor to sign contracts and other changes. So on September 21 of 2022, the city council directed the city attorney to prepare a draft ordinance to clarify purchasing authorization procedures consistent with the changes discussed by the council at that meeting. Attached to this agenda report and part of your agenda packet, you will find the proposed ordinance which amends chapters 2.05, 2.16, and 6.20 of the Pacific Grove Municipal Code. Those amendments are found in your agenda packet. The change to 2.05010 is to add the language, the mayor has the authority to sign any contract, deed, bond, or other legal instruments only with prior city council approval. The change to section 2.16160B was to add the words by council resolution. There are longer changes to sections 2.16.220 that in the interest of time, I'm not going to read, but they're in your agenda packet. And then finally, 6.20040A adds the words and for purchases and contracts for all expenditures, which is authorized pursuant to PGMC 2.16. So the appropriate action to take here would be to request a reading of the title. And then after I've read the title, a motion to approve the recommended action.
Do we have any public comment?
I see no public comment online.
A little drier than harbor seals. All right, and bring it back to council. Council discussion. Councilmember Smith.
I'd request a reading of the title.
This is an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Pacific Grove, amending chapters 2.05, 2.16, and 6.20 of the Pacific Grove Municipal Code on authority of mayor to sign contracts and purchasing system and procedures and warrants. And the appropriate motion at this time would be to approve the recommended action.
So moved. Recommended action.
Second.
Councilmember Coletti beat Councilmember Tomlinson to this. Councilmember McAdams.
Thank you, Mayor. Just some discussion on the motion. I'd like to thank my colleagues. Like, this has been sort of a couple of years and lots of conversations, and I'm actually very proud of this work. And I think that it definitely will help future council. So thank you so much.
I'll add that I appreciate the help that I got from our assistant city manager and our city attorney as well, and comments. Actually, I believe they were only from Councilmember Pedori at our last time we talked about it to make changes and make it better. So thank you. Right. Sounds like we're ready for a vote.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Councilmembers Tomlinson,
Aye.
Aye.
McAdams,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio,
Aye.
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0.
All right, thank you. All right, before we go on, let's do a check on what's on the rest of the agenda. So we've got 3 items on the agenda. And I'll tell you what my thinking is. This climate action and adaptation plan is an important topic for discussion. And it is getting late, and we do have a consultant that's going to help us with the 15A discussion that we don't want to put off. So any of my thoughts, Councilmember Tomlinson?
Yes, Mayor, I'd like to move that we continue items 13A and B to a future meeting and close out open session and go continue closed session at this time.
Second that.
Any discussion on the motion? Councilmember Coletti?
Well, I mean, I understand the motion, but this has been on and off our agenda since June. And I think the BNRC is getting a little frustrated with the council. You know, they're trying to give us information and we're just kind of blowing them off. So I would invite my colleagues to consider we're just receiving a presentation. That's all we're doing. And I think we can work our way to a 10 o'clock deadline before going into closed session. So I would really encourage all of us. Well, let's do what we can do.
When I jump in here and ask our presenter, Megan McKenna, I'm assuming she's on the line.
Yep, I'm here. Good evening, everyone. Claudia is on as well too, so I think she was gonna present as well, or they were gonna present as well.
They've been here since, for hours waiting.
The motion, I'm sorry, it was the motion to the next meeting?
That was the motion, yes, Mayor. And I've never seen this on the agenda since June. Have I missed it every time?
It's been on our advanced agenda and it keeps getting bumped and bumped and bumped. And
That I have seen, but it's never made it onto the agenda just for.
Maybe
clearing the
once or
record.
twice. But
Right. Further discussion
I'll make
on the motion.
I'll make a counter motion. I make a motion or a substitute motion that we continue with this item. These people have been waiting here for hours and I just don't like it when we actually put something on the agenda and then just kind of don't recognize the fact that people take a lot of time and effort to show up and perform or provide information to the council, and we kind of blow them off. So I don't know what the next agenda, there's a single-use plastics. I don't know if that's the same case, but maybe we could just ask them how long it's going to take to give this one presentation. So that's my substitute motion, is that we hear item 13 or 13A, climate action and an adaptation plan.
Second.
I mean, and this is a problem we occur whenever we have to continue items, no matter who's giving it.
So you need to
and-
vote on the substituted motion
Yeah,
first.
just discussion on the second.
I'm
on the
just going to
substitute
discuss the substitute motion and say that we're all going to want to give input and it's very late and then we have to take on another item. It's probably going to take an hour in closed session. So I'm not gonna vote for the substitute motion because I want to be able to be articulate about these topics.
Okay, I think we're ready for a vote. A vote on the substitute motion.
Councilmember Coletti,
Aye.
Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Mayor Peak,
No.
Councilmember Spaduri,
No.
Smith,
No.
Tomlinson,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio.
No.
Motion fails. 5-2.
All right, now, a vote.
4-3, sorry.
All right, a vote on the original motion.
Councilmember Tomlinson,
Aye.
Councilmember Smith,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Emilio. Councilmember McAdams,
Aye.
Paduri,
Aye.
Mayor Peak.
Aye.
Did I get everybody?
No.
Councilmember Coletti. Motion carries 6-1.
All right, and so thank you everyone from the public staff that have been with us. That concludes our open session.
Well,
And-
not quite. I'll need
And
to read
now
the
we're
closed
going to
session.
go
All right.
into closed session and our city attorney is reminding me we need to make a notice
That's right.
and hear public comments. So if you do so, please.
I'll be glad to. It's one closed session item, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9 D2. It's one case arising out of a letter received from Andrew Sandoval on August 25th of 2022, which is included within your agenda packet. And now would be the time to ask for public comment.
Do we have any public comment?
I see no hands raised online, sir.
All right, we'll adjourn the open session and go into closed session.
Actually,
And-
we'll be leaving the meeting open. We're just going to recess into.
Okay,
Closed.
recess.
Yes,
Okay,
recess to
recess
the
to
closed.
close.
Right.
And then we'll do a report out at the next regular meeting.
Yeah, I don't anticipate any reportable action, but if there is any, we could do that.
Okay,
Again.
good night, everybody.
Officially adjourned?
Big number.